Let me start it. I got to bring up the page.
Let's make sure my mute's working. Can you hear me?
Wait a minute.
It's working.
I said, "Are you streaming?" and you heard me, and my mic is muted.
Ah, you're using the wrong mic.
Oh, that could be a problem.
Tap on your mic. No, that's the right mic. Nope. No, you got the right mic.
Well, then, I've had this problem once before where Video Ninja does not mute my mic,
That's
but
because you've got the
Audacity
wrong
does.
one set up as the default. You're telling Pulse Audio to
Well,
default to mute your
yeah,
default mic.
Audacity is muted.
Well, each individual application can choose its bespoke device. So if you
Well, I picked this mic, so
but
I don't.
if your mic is not that on the default and you've got an application just trying to use the default, or if your mute button is just muting the
My audio source is my Q2U. My video source is my webcam.
how are you muting it though?
With my mute key on my keyboard,
The microphone mute?
I'm in Mint. We set up the mute key.
Okay, but when you set the mute key up, did you use a Pulse Audio command that mutes
I
a
just use
certain,
the keyboard setting.
which is sending what command?
All right, keyboard. Keyboard shortcuts. Um, Microphone mute. It's sending mod 4M, which is what I've set.
Okay, but what command?
Microphone mute. That's all it says here.
It's got to be mapped to like some Pulse Audio mute command of some sort.
It works in everything else, and it usually works here. I do not know why it works here sometimes and doesn't work other times. But my mic is still muted right now on my end.
Yeah, I'm showing Q2U. So apparently that command that you guys set up on your keyboard is not the mute command for that microphone.
Well, it
Now
shuts it off for here.
if in Mint, do you have in the sound settings, do you have that microphone set up as your default microphone as the
Yes,
fallback?
yes.
My
Everything
next question would be, can you verify that Audacity is recording from the Q2U?
yes.
Okay.
I opened up edit preferences, and the recording says default.
Just to satisfy my curiosity, shut
No, it does not say Q2U. It says default.
on what are you looking at?
Audacity preferences.
So unmute, tap the Q2U, and see how the waveform looks on Audacity. Now mute and do the same again.
Hang on, I'm not. I'm off on Audacity. Okay.
Still coming through. Do me a favor and shut the hardware switch, or the switch on the microphone itself. Shut that off.
Okay.
Audio, audio. Still got the echo, so it ain't him. You gotta turn it back on, Moss.
Yeah, but I still want to make sure that he's recording from
Yeah.
Okay.
Audacity using the Q2U
Well,
instead
Audacity
of,
is using the Q2U,
and it mutes.
but it doesn't say Q2U.
It says default, which it
Yeah.
should.
Well, then it's just using whatever you've got the
Set
Mint
up on the system.
settings. Yeah.
I'm going to try closing Audacity and opening again.
We should be streaming this since, we're late now.
Uh, we are.
Streaming?
Yes.
I turned off the automation, so double check.
Yeah, well, I turned it back on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do not show the Q2U as an option as a recording device. I've got HDA Intel PCH analog. I got another one. I've got webcam. I've got sys default sample rate, SPX rate, pulse up mix, V down mix, and default.
Yeah, I see that we are live now.
But when I do playback, I have the Q2U on there, which I don't want to be using for playback, but I should. I usually have the Q2U showing up here under devices input.
Go ahead and leave it on default, but then go ahead and enable the monitoring, and then do some that little button right there. It looks like a record meter microphone. Hit that, and you
What screen are we talking about? I'm still on
Audacity.
in Audacity. I
Yeah,
hit what?
the little button that looks like a microphone,
A little button that looks like a microphone. Start
and then it'll
monitoring.
yeah. And if you
Okay,
do you see it moving while
I
you
do.
talk? Okay, then you're grand.
Okay.
Because mine doesn't show my when I look into um, recording device. I see HD audio generic, and I see my Brio webcam. I see my HD Pro webcam. I see Pulse and default. I don't actually see. Well, I wouldn't see Q2U because I'm using the Focusrite Scarlett. So normally that would show up, but see, this isn't. Audacity doesn't use Pulse by default in the background. It's using straight from ALSA. So I don't know if it enumerates the devices the same way. It's a good thing it's well understood that the YouTube stream is a raw watch us make the
Okay.
show kind of thing.
Well, I seem to be overblowing my microphone again, and
Oh,
I've
you're
got it.
perfect.
Okay, well, I'm going over zero on Audacity's end, and I got it turned down a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn it down anymore because you're kind of
Well, video automatically corrects, so
not
turn it
anymore.
down.
Don't. Not
Right.
with Pro Audio enabled. We're running
Uh,
wide open.
Well, should we try it?
We should.
All right. Get ready to hit that record button.
Yep.
Three, two, one, record. I am getting more background noise than usual. It's like my computer is louder or something.
Maybe
Bill's
maybe
down
you're
there trying to make me laugh.
I'm not even looking at that. So, well, let's get the sync. I don't know why I'm getting a lot of background. It's not it's not outside noise. It's just like
Um,
uh,
it's fine.
okay,
we're not picking it up here.
No.
Your gain's turned up loud.
okay. Let's all say zero. Three, two, one, zero.
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 Sound good to me.
Good enough for government work. All right, let's bring up the correct page.
Yeah.
Can I ask a stupid question?
You go right
No.
ahead.
So
You don't
on
mind a stupid answer.
Audacity, my audio is just saying zero all the way along. I'm not getting any waveform.
Then you
at
don't
all.
have your microphone on Audacity.
Do you,
In which
Up
case,
in
we
the-
need to start this over.
yeah, we'll have to start over. Up in the top right corner, does it show that it's monitoring?
You got
Is
to
there a
turn
green bar
monitoring
that's
on.
bouncing up and down?
You got to turn that on. There's a little button there. It looks like a microphone. Hit that and then enable monitoring.
That depends. Once you start recording, it starts monitoring. Now, if
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
it does.
saying zero
It says
even when he's
recording
talking,
meter options.
You might be on the wrong microphone.
Yeah, Audacity might be on the wrong mic.
Hit the big button that says audio setup. Well, stop the recording first.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're stopping and deleting.
Yep.
stopping and deleting.
Hit the button that says audio setup. Are you running the flat pack of Audacity?
He's running the snap.
Okay, so the snap should have the big button that says audio setup, and then recording device, and then make sure you select the correct microphone.
Okay. How do I know if this is picking it up now, though?
Hit the button next to it that looks like a microphone, and hit start monitoring. And then if you're talking into it, you should see it bouncing around.
So I am talking. Yes, it is moving around now.
There we
Okay.
go.
Well, let's go again then. Everyone, 3, 2, 1, record. All right. 0 time. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Zero.
0.
Hold on, we started recording again?
No.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's what I get for paying attention to something else.
Are you pulling legs or do we have to
No,
start over?
I'm serious. We have to start over.
Oh, God, here we go again then.
All right. Edit, undo, record.
I want to take a moment to welcome everybody to the mintCast live stream. You are bearing witness to our madness in full effect.
Okay, well, everything should be working now, so let's do this again.
And let's see what screws up now.
Sure. 3, 2, 1, record. Okay. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Zero.
Does everyone have a nice, pretty waveform?
Oh, no, we got to start over.
Joe?
What? Third time's the charm. Well, okay,
That-
fourth time's the charm.
Okay, start all over again then.
No,
Are
no,
we- no,
I
no,
was
he-
joking.
he's
Don't start
pulling
over.
leg.
Don't
Pulling
mess.
leg.
Don't mess with
I'm
your
not sure
recording.
now.
He did
Wasn't
that
sure.
really well.
How's my
All right.
microphone sounding, by the way? Is it
You
sounding
sound
all right?
good now.
Not bad.
Sounding
Yeah.
good, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've got a noise gate running on your input,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Okay. Take it, Bill.
Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 410. This is episode 410.5, recorded on Sunday, April 16th, 2023. Glad to be back. I'm Bill.
Still killing it. I'm Joe.
Whirring along mindlessly, I'm Moss.
And I'm Majid, and I'm atypical, but not an atheist.
Super duper. First up in the news, Mint Monthly News, March 2023, Ubuntu 23.04 beta released, updates in Tumbleweed, last 16.04 based Ubuntu Touch rollout, Linux Lite 6.4 released, Cosmic DE updates, OpenBSD 7.3 and FreeBSD 13.2 announced, big changes in Firefox 1.13, Mullvad announces their own browser, and Solus sets sail once again. In security and privacy, Cody leaks. Then in our wanderings, Bill catches up. Moss has more drive. Joe is such a
Such a
prince,
prince?
like prince as in, oh, okay, I get it. A little play on words there. Majid iPads in. In our Wonder section, we meet our new co-hosts.
Well, only one of them.
Yeah. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Who wants the first one?
I picked my articles already. It's you guys.
Oh, I have to pick them?
Mm.
You
I
do the
usually.
first one, I'll do the second one.
Okay.
First one's short.
Uh, okay, so in the news, Mint Monthly News, March 2023. Just a day too late to be included on our last episode, Clem talks about the upcoming changes to theming and other visual changes planned for Mint 21.2 Victoria, which can be expected around the end of June or beginning of July. And there's a link in the show notes to the Switch to Linux video.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ubuntu 23.04 beta released with new features. This is from 9 to 5 Linux. Ubuntu 23.04 will be one of the few Ubuntu releases to include some of the latest and greatest GNU Linux technologies and software. For example, it comes with the recently released GNOME 44 desktop environment for the Ubuntu Desktop Edition, which comes with an updated Ubuntu font, and it's powered by the latest Linux 6.2 kernel series for top-notch hardware support. The Ubuntu Desktop Edition also includes a brand new installer that has been in development for the past year, and it's written entirely in Google's Flutter UI SDK. The new installer is pretty much identical in functionality to the old installer from previous Ubuntu releases, with the exception that it doesn't yet support ZFS installations. But all is not lost, as there will be a legacy ISO available for download that ships with the old installer, for those of you who want to install Ubuntu 23.04 with ZFS. Talking about extra ISOs, Ubuntu 23.04 will also feature not one, not two, but three new official Ubuntu flavors, namely Ubuntu Unity, Ubuntu Cinnamon, and Edubuntu. Now, I know aren't there a couple other official flavors that are already out there, so they're not included in that list.
I think
Well, those are the
these
new
are the
ones.
three
Yeah.
new ones. Although to be
Okay.
fair, it's not really three new. It's two new and one return. Because Edubuntu used to be there maybe what 7, 8 years ago.
Well, Ubuntu Unity actually came in the last uh, version. So
And Ubuntu Cinnamon has been around for a while. It's just
it's
not
in
an
a
first
official.
time
remix.
it's
It is
been
now
official.
official. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Edubuntu
as
is
I understand
actually
it, when they become an official flavor, they get a lot more support from Canonical, use of servers and things like this. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they also have to get rid of their Flatpak integration right out of the box.
Oh yeah.
And have Snap integration
Yeah.
in the box.
Which, whatever.
Well, I'll do this one, but GNOME is not my thing. Oh well. GNOME curl and LLVM update in Tumbleweed from OpenSUSE.org. This week in OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, we had both enormous and single package snapshots. A new GNOME compiler tools and music player updates arrived this week, along with a ton of other packages. The snapshot 2023-0329 provided an update of Mesa 23.0.1, which fixed some bugs from its major release. Sandboxing tool for Flatpak and similar projects had an update. Bubble Wrap 0.8.0 added a --disable-user NS option to prevent the sandbox from creating its own nested user namespace. Fixes for recent GLibs warnings were made in the libos tree 2023.2 update. A 1.3 release of FWUPD-EFI had a few fixes for ARM devices and fixed a regression. A few packages arrived in Snapshot 2023-0328. The XFS utilities package XFS Progs was among the updates. The 6.2.0 version now has a command that can retrieve the UUID of mounted file systems and has a fix for broken real-time free block unit conversions. A major version of the compiler and tool chain LLVM brought Clang compiler tools. One of these tools is used to detect locally available GPUs by the Clang OpenMP driver. Another standalone tool determines which headers are used by the existing functionality in ClangD. File synchronization tool Unison 2.53.2 improves stopping of update propagation, and Fuse 3 3.14.1, which is the interface for user-space programs to export a file system to Linux kernel, no longer has flags available that were introduced in 3.14, but will likely be reintroduced in the next release. And my screen just jumped. A few new other packages were updated in the snapshot. Okay.
Hate it when that happens.
The snapshot from the day prior wasn't much bigger. Snapshot 202.30326 updated 2 packages. One GNOME package received its second update this week. GNOME Music updated from its release candidate, which arrived in Snapshot 2023.0324 to version 44. The music application for GNOME users made a small change with app data for the 44.0 release. Another of the project's packages that was updated was gobject-introspection 1.76.1. This package updated documentation and the handle null default values. A major update of Xwhale 23.1.0 took care of some regressions in Snapshot 2023.0325. It also improved rootful mode for using Xwhale as a nested X server. An update of PHP 8.1.17 fixed some incorrect check conditions and a memory leak. The libstorage-ng package had some cleanup and propagated the failure of the Snapper installation helper with the 4.5.87 update. There were a couple of time zone packages updated in the snapshot related to changes surrounding daylight savings. Egypt now uses daylight savings again, and Morocco will move the clocks forward April 23rd rather than April 30th.
Pro tip, Moss, click somewhere on
I did.
Yeah.
I muted my mic, so that will not be on the Audacity.
No, that's not what I was
Oh,
going
no,
to say.
no. He was talking about the screen jumping.
Yeah, if you click on the page that you're reading, it'll think that you're wanting to stay there, and it'll stay
Okay.
put.
I'm hearing some keyboard noise, but not mine. Let's see. KDE Music Player Amarok fixed the crash and added support for FFmpeg 5.0 with a minor version bumps. A 4.18.0 Samba update provided server message block performance improvements, and a new WB info tick change secret at option. A few other packages updated in the snapshot. Snapshot 2023-0324 was enormous in size. GNOME 44 was released in this snapshot, and the Kuala Lumpur codename release didn't disappoint. A new grid view is available with the use of GTK4. However, some apps may still use the previous version. The device security that was introduced in the previous version gains a new status view as either checks failed or checks passed or protected. The accessibility setting had a redesign, and the sound setting gained a number of polish improvements. Another new major version in the snapshot was curl 8.0.1. It fixed the crash, added Fortran bindings, and took care of more than a few common vulnerabilities and exposures. One of those was CVE 2023-275E38 that reuses a previously created connection even when an SSH-related option had been changed, which should have prohibited reuse. Several regressions in the handling of G-file info attributes were made with the glib 2 2.76.1 update. An update of ImageMagick 7.1.1.3 reverted some changes due to file conflicts, and the version build aids with AVX2 and enables the HW caps library for x86-64-v3, so try a zipper INR if you have v3 hardware. LibreOffice reverted some patches and had a harf buzz text shaping fix. Several other packages updated in the snapshot included GTK3 3.24.37, GVFS 1.50.4, SQLite 3.41.2, WebKit 2 GTK3 2.40.0, and many more.
Okay, so Ubuntu Touch OTA 25, right, last version based on 16.04 has been rolled out. This is from 9to5linux.com. The Reports Foundation released today the Ubuntu Touch OTA 25 update for the supported Linux phones and tablets as the last version based on Ubuntu 16.04 Xenial Xeros operating system series. This is now rolling out to supported devices as the last software update with Ubuntu 16.04 base, bringing some minor improvements like on-screen keyboard, vibration optimizations on wall of phone devices, emblem counters and rend messages basically for the dialer and messaging apps, as well as way Droid install and setup improvements. OTA 25 also brings persistent notifications when the urgency status is set to critical, and other improvements to notifications like support for more than two lines for the notification text, improves daytime picker visibility when using the Suru Dark theme, and re-enables support for pinning favorites in the dialer app. On top of that, this release includes a patched Qt web engine with the latest security updates applied, an updated channel selector that now offers ordering of update channels from 16.04 to 20.04, and support for displaying version numbers, as well as various minor fixes. Check out the release announcements for more details. Those of you who use Ubuntu Touch on your devices and haven't yet upgraded to the OTA ones released based on Ubuntu 20.04 Focal Fossa can install OTA 25 update right now to enjoy the improvements mentioned above. However, it is highly recommended to upgrade to Ubuntu Touch OTA 1 20.04 as soon as possible. This is the last OTA for Ubuntu 16.04. There will be no further OTAs in this channel unless a catastrophic event forces to do so, is what Ubisoft ports have said on their website. Ubuntu 20.04 Focal is already shipping the first OTA, mainly for testing for how the upgrading works, but this is where the future lies. It continues.
I removed all the various phones that this works on because, hey, we don't need to spend 5 minutes reading phone models.
It's true. I'm excited for the new Ubuntu Touch. Hopefully, it actually works well. I've yet to see an actual, like, Linux phone version that would work as a daily driver long term.
I did think about putting it onto one of my OnePlus devices, um, but again, I suppose the app lack of app ecosystem has an effect. I have a spare OnePlus 6 in the house, which we use on emergencies, and it seems that everybody's just on WhatsApp these days. People are ringing on WhatsApp, people are messaging on WhatsApp, and things like that, and that kind of stopped
It's
me from
a
going over
little
to Ubuntu Touch.
it's a little less here in the US, people using WhatsApp. I do know what you're talking about because I work with a lot of people that are on the other side of the pond in one country or another. Um, and I see what you're saying there. But if this is Ubuntu Touch and it works anything like the Manjaro on the Pine phone that I was using, you can install whatever you like. There's
Yeah.
no lack of an ecosystem. There's everything that runs on Linux will run on the phone.
So
Now,
would
And
that be through
and the new
Waydroid?
one is also running
no,
Lomeri, which
it's not Android. It's not Android. You're
it's
running
not Android.
Linux.
Okay.
Uh,
Now, there are some things where scaling is a major issue or where it will cause instability and crashing in the background, which is why I say it doesn't work excessively well as a daily driver. And once you start running a lot of desktop things on your phone, it drains the battery really quickly,
well, OTA one
etc.,
is running
etc.
Lomeri, which would have been uh, version 8 of Unity, but they seem to have fixed all the problems there, and it should run a lot better than the ones based on 16.04 did.
Right, but what I'm saying is that with Ubuntu Touch, you should be able to sudo apt install WhatsApp
Yep.
and be good.
Maybe I'll have to revisit this then.
I
All right.
really, really want to be excited about mobile, but
Every
it's,
time I get excited by Linux on mobile, I get disappointed.
yeah,
I mean, let's be honest, the ship has sailed now, hasn't it?
yeah, it sure has. The
Yeah, I
app
mean, it's
ecosystem
not
is,
like, yeah, it's not like 10 years ago when we all had, Bada was about and Mimo and, Windows
well,
Mobile was still a thing and BlackBerry,
BlackBerry for crying out loud. I mean, that
yeah,
was a true. It doesn't even matter that it was a superior device. The
yeah,
fact that they didn't have the apps. I mean, that's
yeah,
unfortunately where we're at on that.
yeah. So, I mean, I
And
think You
Well,
know, it's just it's as I said, it's a done deal now. It's you've got a duopoly of Android and iOS,
let's
various
mess.
flavors of Android. Even they are kind of coalescing a bit. It's a bit more of a. In the past, I remember the skins used to be very, very different. You know, like TouchWiz and the LG ones and things like that. Now, even even the skins are pretty similar now, really. So, I think yeah, Linux on the phone is nice. It'll be fun. I still want to get a tablet and put Linux on that, a UB ports or something. But yeah, the ship has sailed.
Why not just install Linux Mint?
Is there Linux Mint ARM version?
No,
Why get an ARM version of a tablet?
No, because battery
because
life.
of our ARM tablet.
Most of them are ARM, and
Yeah, most
an
tablets are ARM.
x86 tablet's got uh, pretty bad battery life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main reason.
I,
Battery
I, I,
life.
okay, I
Okay.
like my Dell Latitudes. I mean, I could have this conversation with you if you really wanted, but we'll be in the news for a really long time.
I know you love your Dell Latitudes. I've heard you talk about loads of times
Yeah.
putting Mint on and things like that. And I've often been tempted myself actually, but that would only work. I've got a Windows tablet which I can do that on, which I do have a plan for doing that. But yeah, I can't do it on my ARM tablets, can I?
Okay.
Well, I've also done it on ARM tablets too, and there are some of them that I could recommend for that, but they're just going to end up slow, so I don't.
Well, Ubuntu does have ARM versions that will run on Raspberry Pis, and I do not know whether they would work on tablets.
So according to the UBports website, there's a couple of tablets that they do support. I think there's a Lenovo M10 from 2018. And there was a couple of others, 3, 4 years old. So because I remember making a note of those and thinking, if I ever come across a second-hand one, maybe I might try that. But it would be
Well,
a project rather than an actual use thing.
the Transformers. I'm trying to remember what company they come from. Was
Asus
it the
Transformers.
Asus Transformers? Yeah, I used to install Linux on those, and if I remember right, those are ARM processors.
Yeah, they
So
are. Yeah. Which ones
it
would
was,
those be? Would those be the T100 series? Like,
yeah, the T100 series. That is correct.
all
Or
right,
the
I'm gonna have
there
to have
was
a look
also
around.
the TS 100 series.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been a long time since I put anything on a transformer just because they got slow, and
Hmm.
that's about the time that I had switched to Dells. And there were two different sets of Dells, and one of them was the Latitude, and the other one I can't remember. But they're both running i-series processors. So, but hold on, I have them here, but they have like freaking extra batteries built into the keyboard. So there's no battery life issue with them. Yes, my
Oh, I see
mess.
what you mean. Yeah.
So
Shall we move on?
Ah, okay, I got you. I got you. Yep. That must, well, I know what I'll be doing on eBay tonight then.
well, this isn't the Latitude. This is a different one. I just gotta. I'll talk to you about it later.
Yeah, I've got a Lenovo Mix 720, which I use for work, which it's pretty reasonably powerful actually. It's got 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. It's got a, what generation? 8 Gen i5. Battery life is pants. That's with Windows. So I can't imagine it being much better when I put Linux on it, but that's another thing I'm going to be doing.
Okay, Linux Lite 6.4 is released from linuxliteos.com. Linux Lite 6.4 Final is now available for download and installation. Building upon the release of 6.2, we've added a number of new changes. Linux Lite applications, our in-house applications, are starting to be repackaged using ZSTD compression for significantly faster decompression speeds and higher compression rates. For example, Light Themes, the old compressed package was 91.2 megabytes, and the new compressed package is 76.8 megabytes. This will benefit machines from a wider range of ages Great for slower computers when installing updates, lightning fast updates for modern machines. Added System D report to Light System report. This edition will help a wide range of people in regards to diagnosing a variety of booting and general system inquiries. Our amazing support team on the forums will also find this very helpful. Added WebP support in the Thunar file manager for displaying thumbnails correctly. Thunderbird gets redesigned icons, Spaces toolbar, new address book, message header customization, import and export wizard, and matrix chat support. Other changes include the latest Papyrus icon theme. The hardware database now has over 80,000 submissions, 100,000 here we come. And the latest stable versions of Chrome, LibreOffice, Light applications, etc., new wallpapers, plus many other tweaks and changes.
Cool.
Okay, so my Audacity's decided to stop.
That sucks.
This is a bad thing.
It's
Just
just
start it
stopped.
up again, and we will do another sync, and then we'll have to try and match it up. If we lost some audio, we lost some audio.
I don't
Or Bill
understand
can
though,
pull it all
because
from the
it's.
YouTube.
I mean, I don't understand. Okay.
If you disconnected your mic and then reconnected it, that could cause an issue.
Is that what it? Okay.
But as long as Audacity is running, keep it running, and we'll do another 0.
Hold on.
Someone is at the front door.
That's tough. Tell them to go away.
Right?
Okay, so I've got Audacity running again.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, 0.
0.
0.
Oh, you
Let's
got to
try
say
that
it.
again.
Yeah.
Joe has to say it too. 3, 2, 1, 0.
0.
That
Sorry,
was
somebody
better.
was at my front door.
No, they're not allowed. Okay,
So-
Joe, you're up.
Okay, this is Cosmic DE first spring updates. This is from System76.com. It's not quite ready yet for you or me, but Carl feels it's close to being ready for the design team to use daily. For now, completed software pieces are being used alongside temporary engineering workarounds. Once those workarounds have been replaced by design implemented and user tested software, we'll have an alpha release to play around in. That part is further away, but it's exciting. Each month, more and more pieces are coming together for Pop! OS. Pop! OS's new desktop environment. Read on to see what was added in March. The launcher. The UX and engineering teams are working together to bring a launcher to a more finished look and feel. Check out the latest styling for the launcher in the screenshot below.
What screenshot?
Exactly. Maximize and full screen. In Pop! OS 2204 LTS, maximize and full screen are separate functions. The main difference between the two is that maximize windows borders the top panel, while a full screen app covers the top panel and hides the title bar. However, in Cosmic DE, the dock or panel can be oriented on any edge of the screen, float or extended to the edges, be large or small, stay hidden, or intelligently hide when a window overlaps the panel. If panels are always hidden or intelligently hide, is there really a difference between maximize and full screen? In Cosmic, maximize will abide by your preference to keep panels always visible, always hidden, or intelligently hide. Each panel can set separately, so your top panel can be always visible while your bottom panel intelligently hides. While Pop! OS won't give a separate full screen mode for application window, apps that feature their own full screen mode will still be able to use it via their respective controls or shortcuts. So these apps like browsers, presentation software, LibreOffice, and yes, the full screen button in YouTube and other video players will continue to function as expected. Tiling. Active hints and configurable window gaps are now working in tiling mode. Tiling features are getting close to parity with Pop! OS 2204 LTS, with the notable exception of stacking. Additional features and hints to make auto tiling easier for more users are also in the works. Cosmic Time. Cosmic DE's iced GUI Toolkit Animation Crate is now ready and published. Cosmic Time provides a simple API to build and show complex animations efficiently in applications built with Iced. It was created to be easy to use, no math required for any animation, and custom animation support for devs to create their own. Head to the link to see what's next for Cosmic Time. I don't see a link. Performance improvements. Big performance improvements have been made to Cosmic Text and the text editor. For one, RAM usage for the text editor has been cut in half. It also starts up a half second faster. Jeremy, the principal engineer, says it feels instantaneous now. By applying these improvements to libcosmic, other cosmic applications will see a boost in speed as well. X-Wayland Cosmic Comp improvements, these two updates, considerably reduced demand on CPU resources. Carl noticed his desktop running much quieter after this update. Side note, Levi, QA lead, says Cosmic is working pretty darn well on NVIDIA systems thanks to the work done on the compositor. Cosmic GUI widgets. Substantial progress has been made developing the widget library for Cosmic applications. Once the widget library fills out, focus will move to creating panels in Cosmic settings that introduce functionality to customize the Cosmic desktop experience. Drag and drop. Drag and drop functionality has been merged with Smith Client Toolkit, which opens the door for the team to complete work on workspaces, the application library, and much, much more. Optimizations from community contributors have been added to Smithe that are already being used in Cosmic Comp. One such optimization improves NVIDIA support by allowing faster copies between multiple GPUs. Iced animations in the wild. A Linux Software Center project is already using our Iced animation crate in their project. It's cool to see our contributions contributing to other open source projects out there. Very exciting. Also very long.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring to the marketplace.
There's one thing I don't understand. I've never understood why Pop made their own desktop. I mean, it's quite nice.
Because they wanted to.
I've used Cosmic and it works all right, and it's got some nice tiling features. I can only assume it's because of their hardware compatibility, because they obviously make devices and things like that. But it just seems like a lot of work. I mean,
Well,
choice is good, but
for
it seems like a
minimal
lot of
reward.
work. And why not just work more closely with, say, GNOME or something like that? I
Well,
don't know.
because nobody can work closely with GNOME. The problem is that when you are basing everything on GNOME, you have to lean all of your add-ons and plugins up against the GNOME code base. And if GNOME changes something fundamentally in the code base that you have to, and it's not always clear immediately how to do that. All of a sudden, all of the add-ons that might be making Cosmic what it is don't work anymore. So the only way to negate that problem is to be in charge of which GNOME code base you are using, and in order to do that, you've got to fork it. You gotta do your own thing.
Yes, it's
At
in the
one
same way
point,
that
they
Linux
actually
Mint
were
did with
talking.
Cinnamon.
At one
What's
point,
that?
they were actually talking about throwing GNOME out and
Yeah.
trying EFL.
And I mean, that was kind of in response to some of the drama in the community. And then, as we all know, I mean, it's just my opinion that GNOME has not always been so good at answering people's concerns with the direction that they seem to be going. They're sometimes they seem more interested in throwing fuel in the flame, and so other projects that are leaning up against GNOME but are adding a lot of customizations on top, they feel as though their only option is to either go with something completely different or to make their own thing. So,
It's a bit of a rerun of Cinnamon then, really, isn't it? From about 10 years ago. Because initially that started off as a bunch of kind of Mint extensions. I remember what it was called something. The first, Anyway, I can't remember, but there were mint
Well,
specific shell extensions, and
Yeah.
then things started to break, and then the team just went, "I'll forget this. We'd make our
Cinnamon
own."
or Mate. Mate tried to stick with the GNOME 2 code base, only moving it into GTK4. And Cinnamon tried to stick with the GNOME 3 code base, but still make it run like GNOME 2.
And there's obvious, problems when when you are being reactive, when your development is basically reactive to what GNOME is doing, then you're going to have a lot more trouble than you would if you were just like to narrow it down to one particular GNOME code base and then just work with that from then on out. But then you're not GNOME anymore, are you? You're
Yeah, makes
yeah,
sense. Makes sense.
you know what I mean? So, they have a customer base that they have to answer to, and they've got commercial imperative involved in their projects, or
Yeah, I mean, the
what
fact
have
that they
you.
sell their own hardware means I suppose they do need to be in more
Right.
control.
And that's probably the only way to accomplish it. Moving on, though, FreeBSD 13.2 announced from FreeBSD.org. Release date April 11th, 2023. The FreeBSD release engineering team is pleased to announce the availability of FreeBSD 13.2 release. And that's in big, angry, all caps letters. This is the third release of the stable 13 branch. Some of the highlights include OpenSSH has been updated to version 9.2 P1. OpenSSL has been updated to version 1.1.1 T. The Beehive hypervisor now supports more than 16 Y CPUs in a guess. Address space layout randomization, or ASLR, is now enabled for 64-bit executables by default. ZFS has been upgraded to OpenZFS release 2.1.9. It is now possible to take snapshots on UFS file systems when running the journaled soft updates. The kernel WG4 WireGuard driver is now available. The kernel Netlink 4 network configuration protocol is now available, and much more. For a complete list of the new features and known problems, please see the online release notes and errata list available at www.freebsd.org/releases/13.2r/rel notes. There's links to these pages in the show notes.
Bill, you skipped OpenBSD.
Oh, I'll get to that after this one then. Um, for more information about FreeBSD release engineering activities, please see freebsd.org/reling, and there's a link in the show notes. Availability. FreeBSD 13.2 release is now available from the AMD 64, i386, PowerPC, PowerPC 64, PowerPC 64 LE, PowerPSPE, ARM version 6, ARM version 7, AArch 64, and RISC-V 64 architectures. FreeBSD 13.2 release can be installed from bootable ISO images or over the network. Some architectures also support installing from a USB memory stick. The required files can be downloaded as described in the section below. SHA-512 and SHA-256 hashes for the release ISO, memory stick, and SD card images are included at the bottom of this message. PGP signed checksums for the release images are also available at freebsd.org/releases/13.2r/signatures. A PGP signed version of this announcement is available at freebsd.org/releases/13.2r/announce.asc. And as Moss indicated, I did skip over a tiny bit of OpenBSD 7.3 announced from openbsd.org, released April 10th, 2023. This is the 54th OpenBSD release. Uh, this project is copyright 1997 to 2023 by Theo de Rat. Nobody disagreed, and one is assumed to agree. Uh, Supposedly, I guess we're supposed to discuss this copyright.
Well, most releases are not copyrighted. In fact, copyright goes against open software principles.
Okay, so what is in this particular release that makes this appropriate?
Is it a change of license, maybe?
There must be a project with. There must be software within that release that is requiring a copyright or something.
Mm.
And if nobody knows, then that ends the discussion.
Anybody run any of these BSDs?
No, never even try. I mean, I looked at it briefly at one time, and I couldn't get it worked out in a virtual machine, and that's the only thing I use to test distros.
We've had a couple reviewed on Distro Hoppers Digest. I've tried to install a couple and failed to do so myself, but we do have a couple reviews in our archives.
Okay, so Firefox 113 promises big updates. So this is from 95linux.com. The upcoming Firefox release will also bring a more secure password generator that now includes special characters too. With the release of 112 hitting the stable channel today, Mozilla promoted today the next major release, surprisingly called 113, to the beta channel for public testing. Firefox 113 looks like an interesting release that will bring support for animated AV1 images, a more secure password generator, includes special characters as mentioned, an enhanced picture-in-picture mode, also that which lets you rewind, check the video duration, and more easily enable the full screen mode. The upcoming release also seems to introduce a feature that was initially planned for 112, namely the ability for Linux and macOS users to use FIDO2 or web authenticators over USB with support for fully passwordless logins. Another interesting change that is not yet mentioned in the release notes is the fact that Mozilla now offers an official deb package for Debian and Ubuntu systems. This should make it a lot easier for those users to update their Firefox installations to the latest version on the day of release. However, please note the deb package depends on the libgdk-pixlib-xlib-2.0-0 and libgdk-pixbuf2.0-0 packages to be installed on your Debian or Ubuntu system. You can download that from Mozilla directly. On top of that, the bookmarks importing feature has been updated to also import the favicons for those bookmarks by default to make them easy to identify when importing browsing data from Chrome-based browsers. Firefox 113 also promises some goodies for Android users, hey, such as support for hardware accelerated AV1 video decoding by default on supported hardware, or via software decoding and the ability to print from websites that use window.print. Web developers will be happy to learn that Firefox 113 promises support for the scripting CSS media query, support for several new WebRTC features for improved interoperability, support for the forced color adjust property, support for color functions from the color level 4 specification, as well as the ability for module scripts to import other ES module scripts on worklets. Mozilla plans to release 113 for all supported platforms on May the 9th, 2023. So it'll probably be late. Until then, if you want to take a test drive, check out the new feature.
I know on my phone I just run the beta, so I haven't had any problems.
Okay, so this might be a stupid question, right? I know that on iOS devices, all the browsers are basically just skinned Safari because Apple do not allow any other web rendering engine on their devices. Is that true for Android? I've always thought it
No.
wasn't. But then at the same time, I've never found the. I haven't managed to find a significant difference between the Chromium-based browsers and Firefox on Android. I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. I just mean it in they seem to just work around the same. I suppose that's a good thing, really. But yeah, so are there different web engines for those?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
Mozilla has their own web engine. Almost everyone else uses Chromium.
I think a lot of the limitations on an Android-based device are kind of shared by all browsers, and so the functionality is going to be somewhat the same. I don't know. I just don't know if there's enough zealot type development going into Firefox on Android, because it's really I kind of force myself. Well, I don't use Firefox as such. I use Fennec, which basically is Firefox from. Joe's probably a Chrome user. I can tell by the way he stuck that in his nose. Um, I force myself to use these things because I want to support the projects, But you're right. There's not most of the differences are going to be cosmetic, or just the uh, syncing capabilities between the browsers on the desktop and the browsers on the mobile
So, I mean,
devices.
a couple of years ago, I made the conscious decision to move away from Chrome because, evil Google
Yep.
and all that. And Chromium didn't, although I did use it once or twice, it didn't appeal to me because things always seem to break. I mean, it is an open source project, I suppose, and some of the extra functionality that Chrome has is proprietary Google code. Um, so I went to Firefox, which because hey, it's free and open source and blah blah, and because it's a different rendering engine, and everybody else is basically using Chrome's web engine, you do sometimes get breakage with sites, not the big ones, but smaller, maybe more niche ones, things like that. And so I always used to have a Chromium based browser as a standby,
Yeah.
if the site didn't work. I then came across Brave and I thought, oh, Brave looks like the kind of free and open source respecting browser I'm looking for. It's Chromium based, it works with Chrome extensions, it syncs without an account, and all that. And so I moved wholeheartedly over to Brave, but there's something about having a company involved that just makes a project maybe a bit more polished. And I found that and it wasn't. And it's very difficult for me to describe this, but there were times when there would be jank. There would be times when sync wouldn't happen. There would be times when this gets lost, that gets lost, this password is not saved, or whatever it might be. I'd noticed that a couple of the open source projects have been using Vivaldi recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'll try that out. And I know it's not free and open source, and maybe it's the fact that there is a company behind it, and so there's a financial kind of imperative as well. But it just seems to be a lot more polished. Um, but I do have to make an account, which I've had to do. And so, where's my data going? I don't know. Is it really as bad as
Well,
I don't know.
Vivaldi is by the guy that wrote opera, and uh, a Chinese company bought out opera and said, "Oh, you're going to be able to go ahead and run it the way you used to," and then they said, "Oh no, you're not," and so he wrote Vivaldi to do what
Hmm.
opera used to do.
And am I wrong? Isn't Vivaldi? Vivaldi is mostly open source. I think there's just a few proprietary bits in that. Some of their
Yeah, I
There's a
think it's
secret
bigger
more
sauce.
open
learning curve
source
to
than
Vivaldi.
others.
Yeah. Um, just Vivaldi is one of those like all-in-one solutions for the web.
Hmm.
Um, which, but no, the whole thing with Chrome and things working better. I think it kind of goes back to kind of a popular discussion where we people that use open source software for moral reasons, for choice of better word, and we kind of like learn to make compromises, don't we? Sometimes we put up with certain things because we ideologically appreciate the place that these these projects have, within our ecosystem. And so we just put up with it, but it's difficult to like spread the word to normal people about these projects like Firefox when you almost always have to make the disclaimer that now, okay, if you start using this, you might every now and then notice something not working right. But when it comes to that whole discussion about Chromium being, open source, yes, the browser is open source, but all of the stuff that makes it work, all of the API calls that go over the internet, those are all connecting to proprietary cloud-based uh, systems, and just to make the browser work. So it's not necessarily fair to call to put Chromium in the same category as Firefox, because Firefox connects to no APIs back at the mothership. Like a lot of people don't even realize when you're doing a search in the search bar, that's using an API back at Google mothership to disseminate what you're searching for, no matter what search engine you're using. And all that translation stuff that we rely on that works so well, well, the reason that works so well is because that's going back and hitting a cloud server somewhere and then coming back and it knows exactly what you're talking about. Firefox, yeah, we don't have these. Well, okay, we're getting close with a couple things on Firefox, but we're nowhere near where Google is with the translations and things like that. But that is the compromise you make with these projects, is that in order to live this morally superior life, I guess, you've got to give up access to some of
Security
these.
costs something.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it I don't see it as giving up something. I see it as, okay, we're in this different world where we need to figure out better ways to solve these problems than just connecting to some cloud thing
Well,
that's
I could do the
proprietary.
next article, which is a better way.
Speaking of which, yeah.
Molvad browser is out from molvad.net. The Molvad browser is developed in collaboration with Molvad VPN and the Tor project to minimize tracking and fingerprinting. Features include privacy quality of the Tor browser to use with a VPN. Using a VPN is not enough to achieve perfect privacy online. There's simply too much data being extracted through most browsers. The Molvad browser is a web browser with the privacy quality of the Tor browser to be used with a trustworthy VPN. Strong anti-fingerprinting from the Tor project. The Tor project has a proven track record of building privacy-focused browser. The Molvad browser has the same fingerprinting protection as the Tor browser. It just connects to the internet with or without a VPN instead of the Tor network. Similar fingerprint for all users. Fingerprinting is an increasing threat against online privacy. The Molvad browser is, just like the Tor browser, developed with the purpose and ambition for all its users to appear as one. No telemetry. Telemetry is unique data being collected by the browser to improve its performance. We don't believe in collecting data about our users. So with the Molvad browser, we've removed all telemetry. Private browsing by default. The Molvad browser has private mode enabled by default. This means no cookies, cache, and history are saved between your sessions. The browser also includes a reset button that creates a clean session in one click. Blocking third-party trackers with uBlock Origin. Even with strong protection against fingerprinting and cookies, it's a good idea to block third-party trackers. You don't want to use, quote, too many, end quote, extensions, as it could be the one thing that identifies you. That's why we only use uBlock Origin. Transparent business model. We have no intention in earning money from the Molvad browser. Our business model is to earn money from our VPN service. Our only ambition with the Molvad browser is to provide the best privacy-focused browser possible to Molvad's VPN users, and to everyone else for that matter. Privacy first. Molvad VPN has a proven record of putting privacy first, with no strange business models or short-term venture capitalist owners. The Tor project is a non-profit organization fighting for human rights. We will always put privacy first in everything we do.
This is a good example of how security is a trade-off because, it's talking specifically about Tor And I myself am not willing to use Tor on any kind of regular basis because I'm not willing to trade that level of security for all the speed that I would be losing. VPN's a different story. VPNs, you can get them pretty fast.
And
Well,
Moled
With a
is one of
Tor.
the best.
since it's saying that it's based on Tor, does that mean it's based on uh, Firefox?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just replacing Tor with a VPN.
Okay.
Adding in the VPN access uh, to the browser. If you are a Molvad user or another VPN user, the VPN is on when you open the browser.
Now you can do something similar, but you have to set it up yourself with Chrome, and then even when you're doing that, Chrome is still sending stuff back to the Google mothership.
Find that mothership, shoot it down. You're up, Joe.
Okay, LXQT 1.3.0 releases. This is from LXQT's GitHub page. LXQT 1.3.0 is still based on Qt 5.15, the last LTS version of Qt5. The Qt6 support was started and is usable in WIP branches, but could not be released due to the lack of a stackable KF6. In LXQT's file manager and its library, smooth scrolling can be switched for all view modes, minor issues of the desktop mode are fixed, and handling of zero-sized files is improved. Qterminal has received small bug fixes, especially for use under Wayland. Support for DOS has been added to LXQT sudo. In LXQT session, the detection of window manager and system tray has been improved. Translations have received many updates, and other changes that can be found in change logs of LXQT components.
Yay.
Sounds super exciting.
And we had a last minute add on here. Solus attempts to write its course from the Solus Reddit. Once again, Josh Strobel has taken it upon himself to rescue Solus from the trash heap. In the Solus Reddit, he states that there is a new team to be announced on Tuesday, and that they're busy recovering the files and directories and making alternate arrangements for access. This is called Righting the Ship, and we at mintCast are all for it.
I wish them all the luck in the world. Honestly.
It has
Yeah,
been
I
over
thought
2
Solus
years
was
since the
dead.
last update. Yeah.
Yeah, they came this close to being removed from everybody's conversation.
Well, the way that the previous management group was, that Josh Strobel felt like he was outside of it, and so he just took Budgie and started working on Budgie and left the Solus group. Well, apparently the management group couldn't keep it going, and here comes Josh to help out again. Yay, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always felt like kind of a turbulent project, really, from the beginning. If you followed when Ike was on Late Night Linux talking about it and some of the drama that was going on in those days, it always felt like there was disagreements and drama. Of course, I guess every project has to deal with that, especially when you're small. But yeah, we do wish them all the luck in the world, and I'm glad that they're going to pull it together. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Watch the space.
And you know what? We finished the news.
Moving on to security and privacy.
Okay, Cody confirms a data breach. 400,000 user records and private messages are stolen. From the Hacker News, open source media player software provider Kodi has confirmed a data breach after threat actors stole the company's MyBB forum database containing user data and private messages. What's more, the unknown threat actors attempted to sell the data dump comprising 400,635 Kodi users on the now defunct Breach Forum's cybercrime marketplace. MyBB admin logs show the account of a trusted but currently inactive member of the forum admin team was used to access the web-based MyBB admin console twice, on 16 February and again on 21 February, Cody said in an advisory. The threat actors then abused the account to create database backups that were then downloaded and deleted. Also downloaded were existing nightly full backups of the database. The account in question has now been disabled. The nightly backups contained all public forum posts, team forum posts, messages sent through the user-to-user messaging system, and user information such as forum username, email address used for notifications, and an encrypted, hashed, and salted password generated by the MyBB software. Cody said there is no evidence threat actors managed to obtain unauthorized access to the underlying server hosting the MyBB software. It further emphasized that the legitimate account owner did not perform malicious actions on the admin console, suggesting credential theft. Out of an abundance of caution, the maintainer said work is underway to initiate a global password reset. Users are recommended to change their passwords on other sites if the same password has been used. In the interim, the company has taken down the Kodi forum and noted that it is in the process of commissioning a new server, an activity that is expected to last, quote, several days, end quote. It's also planning to redeploy the forum on the latest version of MyBB software. As additional security measures, Kodi is hardening access to the MyBB admin console, revising admin roles to limit privileges, and improving audit logging and backup processes. I have had a MyBB or a PHPBB on one of my websites, and there are people out there that just hack it to say, hey, I hacked it. And it's not fun. They can take the whole thing down and put something else up in it.
You also have used Kodi for a long time, too.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I don't use the same password there, so I'm probably clear
Well, it just
there.
kind of makes you go, You connect the
I
dots.
haven't been using Kodi for a while, but
Just been hacking it.
no.
Oh,
He's
not
just
me.
been playing around with MyBB.
I'm not it. I didn't do it. I swear. I'm innocent.
Yeah, I used Kodi for a lot of years until I learned what Jellyfin was all about. But really, they're kind of two separate things. They have two separate goals.
Kodi has its uses.
Yeah, it does. I still use it like on the laptop if I'm going to watch anything. I use that instead of just a regular media player. It seems to work out the graphics drivers better or something. Because
If I have an extremely low power device and I just want to hook it up to a TV and watch something with it, Kodi's going to be my go-to.
I mean, it's
that way I'm not playing around with
which
anything
is just a
else.
fork.
Yeah.
No, LibreElec is the distribution that it's just you've got an underlying distribution behind Kodi. Because I used that for a number of years too. That's just your way of burning an ISO onto an SD card, plug it into a Pi, and then plug that into your TV, and you've got a Kodi interface right there on the TV. And then LibreElec has a few more interfacing options to connect to your Wi-Fi and whatever else.
But you can still throw on the same extensions and use all the same databases, and
LibreElec was a fork of OpenElec, which, I don't know, difference in opinions among developers, same story as LibreOffice and OpenOffice. But it is still a good option for using a Pi.
You can tell if Majid is trying to talk to us and his mic is muted, or if he's talking to somebody else.
Can't hear you, Majid.
We cannot hear you. Yeah. That I can read lips, and yes, I agree.
Well, we finished security.
All right, well, moving on to the bi-weekly wanderings.
You probably muted your mic.
And he's panicking. I can see it in his face. The stress. That must be a really cold room he's sitting in because I don't see any sweat.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a bad feeling that my Audacity's taking a different mic to the one that I've got plugged in.
It seems likely.
Shite.
It's happened before
That is the problem with
to
having
all of
multiple
us.
mics. Yeah, we'll sometimes go through the entire show not realizing it.
I'll
It, it,
sometimes go through the whole show and my mic sounds crappy and because it's using the webcam mic.
Yeah, that's happened on all of my shows.
if we gotta pull the audio from YouTube, we will pull the audio from
You
YouTube.
guys have no idea how many times I pulled the audio from YouTube
Okay,
and
that makes
didn't
me
say
feel a bit
anything.
better because I was thinking, shit, I'm completely ballsed up this podcast. First time he turns up and he makes a complete mess of it.
Oh,
Believe
it's
me.
all buggered.
When
Well-
Joe and I joined the show, there were 8 or 9 of us trying to join at the same time, and we only got 1 or 2 episodes of help from the old team. And then, boom, we're on our own.
And
then
we're
I come
trying to
along.
update things because when we originally started, we were using Mumble,
Yeah.
and so we've made just drastic changes across the board to try and bring things up to modern times. And
And every change means somebody gets it wrong. For once,
Well-
at least.
and it's actually show content, trying to get that stuff fixed and
Yeah.
not making the same mistake next time. It's
It's
good
like
stuff.
I've said before, in the spirit of open source and open collaboration, we do these things out in the open because that is what Linux is about, I think.
Just wait. I mean, you were supposed to be sharing the hot seat with somebody, but when we get to the innards, it's all you, buddy.
It's all you, man.
Yeah.
You got to make it last too, because we're only at about we are at an hour and 16 minutes.
Oh, don't worry, I can bullshit for England.
Right, you
Family
say.
show, family show.
Yes, apparently children have not heard the word shit before, so
No, they
we're
never
not allowed,
have.
we're not allowed to say it.
Mine have.
Mine, I'm pretty sure mine
What are
say it
children?
when they're at school.
It's
That's
been
the-
so long, I don't remember.
I still remember my mum I came home from work once and she had an absolute right go at me, and I was like, I couldn't understand why. I said, "You're always using foul language in this house, this, that, and the other."
Look.
And it was because my 2-year-old at the time had swore, and it's like the only
Look.
person who swears is him.
half my friends for the longest time have always been veterans, and I don't know if you've met a whole lot of American soldiers, but those guys, they don't stop cussing when they leave the military.
No, you throw some pretty colorful words into completely polite sentences, and it's a little off-putting for some people.
Well, now that we have Majid back, why don't we shut him off and
I was
do some
wondering
bi-weeklies?
when Moss was going to chime in and put the
Well, I
kibosh.
didn't know. I was continuing the conversation there because it sounded like he had something he specifically wanted to say about Cody. So I was gonna,
Ah.
Yeah. So, but
Give
what I
him
was
the
going to say about
opportunity.
Cody was that I used to use LibreElec as
Yeah.
well with a Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
and maybe about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, Cody just became a bit rubbish, really. I think it was internet service.
it was about the
providers.
time your country sued Cody for basically being software that was used for piracy.
Which is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it'd be around the right time frame. Actually, yeah, you're right.
I
And
wouldn't
so
say it's
yeah, and so
ridiculous.
after
I
that,
was using it for piracy.
So after that, I just got rid. I ended up actually getting rid of the Raspberry Pi, that specific one, because it was like it's not doing anything anymore. LibreElec's not working on it. Cody's not really working on it. I've given up trying to actually use it. Might as well give it away to someone who wants to play around. with it.
Hey,
To a
yeah,
mate.
yeah. If you got Pi 4s, give them up.
Oh, no, it wasn't a
I
Pi
need-
4. It was a Pi 2.
Oh gosh,
It was an old
yeah.
one.
Probably use that for Pi hole, but nothing else. I've got a
They're
website
selling
running
Pi
on
4s at
zero.
$2 these days.
Oh, all right. So moving on to the wanderings, if we would be so kind. Oh, I start this off.
And we
Yeah.
all know which kind.
Since it's been some time since I've graced a show with my presence, you're welcome. I'll describe some of the stuff that's been happening since last I was here. First will be the reason I missed the last show. Every year, the Kentucky Expo Center in Louisville, Kentucky, hosts the Mid-America Trucking Show, a trade show of sorts for the trucking industry. the Mats show, if you will, is by far the largest trucking show in the world. So large you couldn't really manage to get through it in 3 days. I mean, it's huge. This place is just absolutely enormous.
Think
Um,
Dragon Con.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, they hold the state fair there, so I mean, outside they've got all the stables and everything like that. And it is Kentucky, so there's a large equestrian contingent there, what have you. Um, Three Fat Truckers was there. We had a booth where we set up a broadcast studio and had a great time interviewing a lot of interesting people and networking with other content creators and other people in the trucking industry. To say the experience was transformative would be to grossly understate it. Um, since being on the show, our listenership has increased exponentially, and I mean that. I think we saw a growth. Uh, the day after the show, we saw 1,400% growth, which that's really something. So much so we are now monetized. The platform that we upload our audio only episodes to, once you get to a certain level of listenership, then they offer you the ability to add an ad spot to it, and then they just pay you. They do all the insertion and that, and then they pay you a little bit for the number of ads. And yeah, you're looking at a true to form sellout right here, buddy. Um, so yeah, that's a good thing. Some of the people we interviewed include Raman Dillon, who is a representative of NAPTA, or the North American Punjabi Trucking Association, um, as well as Brandy Belton, representative of Truckers Against Trafficking. What they mean is human trafficking. There's this culture in the industry of trying to participate in looking for things that are a bit amiss, and then try to get drivers involved and notifying law enforcement, what have you, and that. And it's a whole community around that. Um, really enjoyed those interviews. You can see all of the interviews we did uh, by following the link that's in the show notes here. It'll take you to the playlist on YouTube that has all of the interviews on it. So that was excellent. I got a new keyboard for my machine, this machine right here. I've been leaning towards getting a mechanical keyboard for some time. For about 2 years now, I've been using the Logitech Wave, which is a nice keyboard to be sure, but never felt I never really liked it all the way because it's got those silly macro buttons on it that you get on keyboards nowadays that some of them work, some of them don't with Linux, and I suppose you can get them to work by getting hacky with it, but when things don't work and I've got it in front of my face, it irritates me. That's a component of my personality.
Yeah, and I've never been able to get a Logitech keyboard with macro keys to actually do
Yeah.
anything in Linux.
And I wouldn't use them anyway. And also, I didn't like it having the function button that you had to push to use the F buttons, what have you. So, um, I ended up going with the. Um, okay, so I've been okay. Moving on. Enter the DOS keyboard for professional. This bad boy right here. This thing makes quite a bit of noise when you're typing on it, and I love it. It's the DOS keyboard for professional. This is a proper clicky keyboard. When you hit the F key, you actually get the F key. There's no secondary functions whatsoever on this keyboard. It does have some simple media volume, play, pause, mute, system sleep button on the upper right corner, but that's it. That's all those buttons do, and they do work perfectly well, plug and play on Linux. Plus, it's got, if you plug it into USB 3, which I did, it's got a built-in 2-port USB 3 hub on it, which is kind of cool if you just want to plug your phone in or something like that. Yeah. Yep, that's about the place where I've got it. The most notable feature is the clickiness. Um, this thing sounds like the keyboards I remember on the old Commodores and the Apple II machines, where if I was clicking, I don't know if you can hear
Is
this
it?
or not, but if I was typing while I'm talking, it's got a probably microphone's probably blocking it out, but it's a proper
No,
clicking
no, we can
keyboard.
hear it.
Yeah,
Is it mech membrane? It kind of sounds mech membrane. Like this is a proper keyboard sound.
yeah, that's what mine is, just like that. Yeah,
That's MX Cherry Blues.
yep, yep, that's what I got. Um, so yeah, I'm happy with this thing. I've got the other one still sitting aside that I used to build a machine for Steve, another one of my hosts, co-hosts on Three Fat Truckers. Um, yeah, which brings me to the next thing. Yesterday, while in our Saturday meeting, our Saturday mintCast meeting, I was finishing the build for a new rig for Steve, who is my co-host on Three Fat Truckers. Steve has this side hustle where he buys up storage units that have been defaulted on and sells the contents that are worth selling. And I mean, he comes up with some real amazing stuff. Um, Comes up with some junk, but I mean, he's been doing really well at it. Well, he found a HP Pavilion desktop 550-077CB, which has a fourth gen i7. I mean, it's not. It
It's
is what it.
usable.
Yeah. I cleaned up the inside real well. The thing looked like it had been running for like 10 years straight. I mean, you talk about the dust on the inside of this thing. Um, I replaced the spinning rust hard drive. It had a big old Seagate one. It didn't say 1 terabyte. It said 1,000 gigabyte, which I suppose is not exactly 1 terabyte as such. Uh, I switched that. I kept it in there, but I just have it running a ButterFS storage pool to put all this stuff on, and then I put a Samsung uh, Evo SSD in it for the operating system and installed Mint 21.1. And I also replaced the built-in NVIDIA card with a AMD Fire Pro 5100,
Hey,
which
Bill,
they're,
Dale tells me that the Samsung Evos currently have a problem with the Linux kernel that won't be solved until the next kernel.
well, what's happening is you've got to disable secure boot. I've had that happen on 2 drives now, and I just disabled the secure boot, and it boots just fine. It's not loading the kernel shim or whatever it needs. If you tell it to, if you're installing and you're telling it to configure secure boot, which if it's got it, I use it. Obviously, I don't have that with Arch Linux when I'm doing those machines, but with this one, well, what I found when I rebooted was it just gave me a error message saying that it couldn't load the kernel first. So I went into the BIOS and disabled secure boot, and it boots right up and it runs fine. So when they get that fixed, it'll be nice. But for the time being, you just have to disable secure boot, which it's arguable whether or not that's necessary for a completely Linux system anyway. Um, but yeah, that AMD Fire Pro, I put that in there because it's got 4 monitor outputs, and he's got a 3 monitor setup just like I do for making the show, and now he can just hook them all up to one video card. And then I also had a USB 3 PCIe card laying around. I threw that in there. That way he'd have 4 more USB 3 ports to use for microphones and cameras and stuff. And then I typed this last part in before my interview today, but earlier today I was interviewed by the Big Gay Trucker podcast. So while at the truck show, I was greeted by and we interviewed the founder of the LGBTQ plus Truck Driver Association, and they've also got a podcast called the Big Gay Trucker Podcast. Um, I wrote here that the video is up on their YouTube channel, and I will share it. But I'll get to that as soon as I can work out where their channel is and all that, because they're not using the same method of streaming that I'm used to seeing. So I'll have to work that out and then share it later. Um, yeah, and then I wrote here at the time. I wrote that before I started, and I got to tell you, I enjoyed that interview too. We really didn't. It was really informal. I think they had some questions, but I'm not sure if
Did they
they
have
were.
like podcasting type questions?
Yeah,
Since I
I
assume
mean
they
they've.
knew that you know.
I had never heard their show before. Some of the questions they were well, they asked me about the Bud Light beer can and how do I feel about that, and I told them, oh, I think it's hilarious. Um,
I think
it,
we should get trans kids to advertise AK-47s and AR-15s.
then maybe they'll be running over those with their pickup trucks.
Uh,
No, I just it's my thing is like this, you know. I told him I said I think it's hilarious because inevitably the all the same people that were throwing a fit about stuff like that, they're gonna. We probably shouldn't talk about this stuff, but I'm going to
yeah,
anyway.
let's
Um,
avoid the politics. Go ahead.
yeah, those same people are gonna end up drinking Bud Light again, you know.
Right.
And oh,
If they
by
were
the way,
drinking it before, they're going to be drinking it tomorrow. Don't worry.
yeah. No,
Or
by the
some other
way,
Anheuser-Busch InBev product.
it's like you people are just now finding out that Bud Light is gay. Come on.
Right. Not only that, but you know the same people that are protesting Bud Light and not buying Bud Light, they don't realize how much money Anheuser-Busch provides to their
Oh,
party.
yeah.
Okay, it's absolutely insane that you're cutting off your freaking nose to spite your face. Beard.
Exactly. And you
Yeah,
know
but
Anheuser-Busch is playing a long game here.
yeah,
They've been around a long
LGBTQ
time.
plus people need to be upset that the money that they're making off of them is going to right-wing causes.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that interview a lot, and I look
Yeah.
forward to.
Well, hopefully that also, you know, gets some cross advertising there, gets their podcast more known, gets your
Yeah.
podcast more known, all that jazz. Oh, and I have to ask, what'd you think about that Chris Trucker that I sent you?
Oh, that was like, what was that? That was a week ago or so.
That was a couple of weeks ago, but you ain't been on in a while.
Yeah, I
So this
know.
is
I'm
my
trying to
first
remember
opportunity
because
to ask you.
I did look at that. Refresh my memory because I've slept since
It's
then.
on YouTube. The guy got a new partner when he got into trucking, and it was the story of how disgusting his
Yes,
trucking
the
partner
fat.
was.
He was fat and everything, and yeah. Okay.
Fat, didn't shower, did horrible things in the cab of the. Or
You know, it's kind of similar to when you shared that other. What was that? Kevin in a big rig.
yeah,
Um, I do have some experience doing a team driving thing. You know, it wasn't like a team driving company as such, but um, I can. It's there is no way I could share a truck with somebody that did not do the basics as far as
hygiene.
personal. I mean, I couldn't share my truck with anybody nowadays, but something like that. And they are out there. I knew this guy. I'm not going to name names, but I knew this guy when I was younger, and I was driving. And this guy was. They used to order like a bunch of steering wheels and keep them in the corner just for this guy because he would climb up in the truck, grab the steering wheel, and yank on it, and would snap it right off the column. And so they would just keep him that way. When he did that, they could put another one on there. And this guy, he would take off Sunday night, be out all week, and then Friday night when we'd all be coming back into the yard, he'd still be wearing the same clothes that he took off Sunday night in. And you would look in his truck, and over on the passenger side would be a bunch of chicken bones and uh, pie rinds and all kinds of stuff like that. He would get these whole pies, and he'd be driving down the road. He'd have his belly out, steering wheel up like this. He'd take his whole pie and set it on his belly and dig out of it with his hands and shove that in his face. And,
Enjoy your dinner, folks.
and he was
That mental image.
he would be I mean he would be the kind of guy to tell you a story like, yeah, to that place right there, if you leave there hungry, it's your own damn fault, you know. He just loved, I don't know, bless his heart, there's no way
Is
he's
this a
still.
confluence of truckers and Florida men?
there's Florida men everywhere, to be clear, but
Florida
they
Truckers Association.
you know, they all tend to gravitate eventually to Florida, just because you can. I don't think any of them actually own a shirt that fits in Florida.
Because
You
you
don't
can
have to.
wrestle alligators and do meth at the same time.
They'd go in hand with each other, you know. So yeah, that's really all I've got. How about you, Moss?
Well, as our listeners know, I do a lot of substitute teaching, or I'm supposed to be doing a lot of substitute teaching. It's been more like a little substitute teaching. More days off than I want. I did work last Friday. It's the first day in 2 weeks. Um, I got my new Samsung SSD for the TV machine, got it installed. I had to do a full installation. The cloning didn't work and brought me to an init RAM FS prompt. It's working fine now. I was going to order another one for the studio machine, but Dale informed me there were issues with Samsung SSDs in the kernel to be solved at a later date, so I bought a Kingston A400 after failing to determine the difference between the cheaper A400 and the more expensive Q500. I got it the morning before Streamcast last Saturday. I did wait to install it until after the show. I also got two new silicon powered Blaze BO2 128 gigabyte USB sticks, one of which is now a Ventoy stick. I need to reinstall Elementary OS 7 on my T540p. I'm reviewing it for the next Distro Hoppers Digest, and I neglected to write down the installation process. Maybe I was worried it wouldn't install. I've had that happen before, but I will be reviewing it next episode. My TV machine, a ThinkCenter M700 Tiny with an i3 chip and 12 gigabytes of RAM, seems to be having a weakness in the DisplayPort port. I have ordered another one, this one with 4 gigs of RAM and an i5 6th gen chip for $68, and will harvest the drive and 8 gigs of RAM from the old one, put it in the new one, resulting in the 12 gigs, and ship the old one to Joe so he can work on it. I did ask his permission first. I have been told I'm getting a new EXBYA soundboard by April 21st, but I have been given no shipping information, so I don't know whether it's actually been shipped or not. If I get to keep the old one, that's also going to Joe.
Woohoo!
I acquired a good keyboard brush from Temu, this cute little thing here. And with the aid of some Everclear, I've returned my old Fellows Microband keyboard to working order. The keyboard I'd replaced it with just didn't have the quality. It looked exactly the same, but the keys were not the same. And I'm very happy to have my Fellows back. My old friend in Detroit, whom I read to almost daily, reported her Roku TV box would work better for stops and restarts if it had a USB drive of at least 16 gigabytes attached. So I have ordered an external drive case, which these days costs $8 on eBay, and will put one of my used Lexar NS100 drives in it. She should be good to go for as long as that Lexar keeps running. That's about it for me. How about you, Joe?
Oh, I evidently have to dig out some DDR3 and have that on standby. I haven't seen any in a while, so gotta figure out where I kept it. It is full-size DDR3, right?
On the
On the computer that you're sending me.
the M700. Well, there will be 4 gigs in it.
Oh, I thought you were keeping the 4 gigs and the
No,
8 gigs for a total
I'm
of 12
getting
gigs.
a new machine with 4 gigs in it. My old machine had a 4 gig and an 8 gig chip, and I'm just pulling the 8 gig chip.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it'll have 4 gig. That's perfect.
But you'll have
Perfect.
to throw an SSD in it.
I have drawers full.
Yes, I thought so.
All right. Well, me, I did a little bit of 3D printing. Yeah, like that. I did a little bit of 3D printing, but I have a cat problem. They like to jump up onto my nightstand and basically knock everything off, including my phone and my glasses. So, I found a tablet wall mount on Thingiverse, and I modified it to work with my phone and the case on my phone. I had to make it a little shorter on the one side to accommodate the USB port, and then I had to make it a whole bunch wider to accommodate the phone and the case. It actually works pretty well, and you know, it hooks up and sits there on the side of my nightstand, and my cats can't knock it over. And I also 3D printed a small shelf for my glasses to put on the side. I'm not really sure about using it though, as my cats may see it as a kind of a springboard more than anything else. So I'm looking for different solutions. Maybe I will print something that allows the glasses to like be more upright on the side instead of laying flat. But if I do that, then I'm going to want some kind of soft interior for it. I guess that wouldn't be too difficult to do because I don't want to scratch up my glasses putting them in and out. So maybe I'll order some felt and then see what I can design. I also started using PETG again. My filament dryer seems to be doing the job quite well at the time of writing this. So long as the rest of my settings are dialed in, I have to do much slower print speeds, like 50 ms instead of the 120, and higher temps, and I have to turn off the fans. The prints are coming out pretty good. I haven't tried anything with a high amount of precision, but you know, it's doing well on simple things. I printed that shelf with it. I actually printed out a stand for a Roku remote, but because it's PETG and the tolerance, there wasn't a whole lot of tolerances there. I'm actually gonna have to print it again and probably increase the size by 2% or 3%. Mostly all that I have left of the stuff that I was printing is ABS, which needs to have an enclosure to print properly, and I'm still working on figuring out a way to modify the enclosure that I have because it's too short for the printer that I'm now using. My old Monoprice Maker Select D2 fits in there just fine, but the Ender 3 does not. Now, I've also talked on the last couple of shows about how these low-cost USB-C hubs that do pass-through PD charging and how they kept breaking, how they charge once and then they wouldn't charge anymore on my 1GX. Well, I found some things out. I did try 2 different chargers with them when I was doing the testing. One of them being my Pine Power charger and one being just, you know, a cheap charger that would do PD pass-through or PD charging. Turns out both of those chargers were bad. The Pine Power was going bad, and then it's mostly died on the USB-C port. It'll still do 20 volt if I mess with it right, but it won't do like the 15 volt, which is what the 1GX uses. So I grabbed a Dell 65 watt charger, and all of those USB-C hubs work just fine using the Dell charger instead of the Pine Power. I'm going to have to tear apart that base on the 1GX one more time and put it all back together again with the proper USB hubs on it so that I can have HDMI port on it again. Well, a full-size HDMI instead of the micro HDMI that's there. Now, specifically because I have set up a TV in my garage in another location that allows me to watch while, you know, exercising and on the glider and things like that, and have it in a more accessible position than my current setup here. I didn't have the full-size HDMI connector hooked up at first, so I grabbed the adapter for a micro HDMI to full size, and then the problem got to be once I turned up the resolution as far as it would go is that it would cut in and out. Now I'm not sure if that's just some kind of power distribution issue from the board itself or what. But once I switched back to the hub and the full-size HDMI, I no longer had the cutouts that I was seeing with the micro HDMI. I also had fun setting up KDE Connect on the device so that I could control it from my phone while on the glider with the different holders that I've built into the side of it using my 3D printer, so that my phone will mount there and then I can just use my left hand and completely control that computer. I have also used it for a couple of podcasts while I was weightlifting as well. That's the other two podcasts that I'm on. But I don't want to leave it over there for a long time because I do like to use it on the go around my house to do some typing, and just to have something small and easy to carry. So I will be looking for a new charger so that I can have one in that location and then another one right here. Um, I don't know if I have another one of those Dell chargers somewhere. I will look, but I think I might have to order something. Now, me and Jackie have been having fun with the local elections. The school board election is once again getting very ugly, and Jackie and I have started being more active in the local Democrats group. So, block walking and attending forums. I have to say, it's a lot nicer on this side of the stage than it was to be on the other side of the stage. It's also a lot of fun talking in the different chats that we have going on while the forums are happening. I also took apart an off-brand like Roomba, because I had bought it broken and it's like worked once going across my floor, and then it said that the main drive brush was stuck. So I ripped it all the way apart and got it all the way down to the brush, and there's nothing clogging it. And I made sure that it was free motion and all that, and then I put it back together, and it came back with the exact same problem. So now I have to wonder if the motor is dead, but the only way to test that is to like strip it all the way down and apply power directly to it. And I really didn't want to tear it all the way apart again because it was a bit of a pain to do it. And I will do it eventually because otherwise it's just gonna sit there and do nothing for forever. So yeah, I will definitely give it a try and talk to y'all about taking it apart and putting it back together again. And I I'm gonna have to figure out what voltage I need to put on that. I'm assuming that it's gonna be 5 volt, but it could be as high as 12 volt. So, okay, that's all I've really been up to. Unless anybody's got any questions, Majid.
Okay, so I suppose I joined mintCast, but I suppose we'll talk about that bit a little bit later on. Um, so I'll talk about some other wanderings that I've been doing. So I bought a MacBook Pro. Now I know this is not the podcast to be talking about having bought a MacBook Pro, but there's a little bit of history, backstory to this. I've always been an I refuse Nick. I've never had an iPhone. I've never had any other of these laptops or anything like that. I did have a first gen iPad Mini. I had just started a job teaching at Newcastle University and at a university hospital. So I thought, and this was back 2012, and I thought, well, this could be a good kind of portable device that I can use for doing my presentations and things like that. But a Logitech keyboard and everything like that, no, basically. Um, Back in 2012, definitely, you couldn't use an iPad for anything, resembling work, even if it was just simply teaching. So that only lasted about 2-3 months before I gave it to my kids. To be fair, I did use it quite well for about a good 4 years, I think. I mean, I know there was a couple of family holidays when we went to Saudi and we went to India where they took the tablet with them, and so I suppose I did get my money's worth out of it. But yeah, so that was the only Apple device I'd ever had. Um, I then the M1 chip is really compelling. When you read about it, especially the performance it can have, and all the other good stuff that has been talked about, all over the internet about the M series chips. But at the same time, I didn't want to drop $1,000 on a new MacBook Air, um, and that to knowing that I probably wouldn't be able to use Linux on it. I know that Asahi was around just at that point. Asahi had only just come on the scene and they had an alpha release out. So basically, it was I have to get used to Mac OS. Um, anyway, I saw an iPad Air 5, which came out about this time last year. with an M1 chip, and I thought, and this was significantly cheaper, and I thought, well, why not? You know, I mean, it would be a good tablet if nothing else, I thought. Anyway, so I bought it. I went the whole hog. Bought the Magic Keyboard, bought the Apple Pencil, and then realized I'd almost spent as much if I'd just really bought a MacBook Air. But anyway, uh, at the time, anyway, it was my way of saying that I wasn't spending that much money. Um, I really tried, but iPad OS, which is basically just iOS, really, still isn't there. If you have any kind of established workflow, whether that's with Windows, whether that's with Linux, whether that's in Android, if you've just got used to doing something in a particular way, you're not going to be able to do that on an Apple device. On these Apple iOS devices anyway, definitely. Even a simple thing like you're writing I don't know, writing an article and you want to put some pictures in. It's just such a convoluted way round, and I'm sure the Apple way is probably good for some people, but it just was far too infuriating for me, and I just got more and more annoyed. And then I came to the conclusion that this was a failed experiment, and it's gonna have to go basically. And actually, even the tablet stuff, everybody talks about how iPad's got the best tablet apps and Android tablets have a bit of a bad rep. Not as much as I think people make out actually. Um, I've always ever had Android tablets. I've had Samsung Galaxy Tabs, I've had Lenovo, I've had Asus, whatever. I've always been pretty happy with them. Frankly, I've never really needed to change them unless I start getting twitchy and thinking, oh, the brand new hotness, my inner magpie starts, calling, and therefore that's why, but they've always worked really well for me. Um, so yeah, got rid of that. Managed to find. I had a friend who wanted to buy an iPad. Managed to sell it to him, and then just went back to normal life, running Linux mainly, and sometimes Windows once in a while when I have to, for some kind of proprietary program or whatever. Um, and it was about 2 weeks ago when I was, finding some, new icon theme or new layout thing that I was going to put on my install. That I thought to myself, everybody always apes Apple. The amount of Monterey themes or Ventura, whatever basically Mac OS icon themes and layouts and docs and everything like that. Everybody kind of does that. I thought maybe I need to actually check out Mac OS properly. But I've already been burnt, and I knew that this wasn't going to be anything that I need to do for production or work or anything like that. So I just thought, I wonder if maybe if I get an Intel-based MacBook, couple of years old, I could then, even if it annoys me, at least I can put Linux onto that, at least, I thought. So I managed to find, I thought it was quite a good deal actually, a 2017 MacBook Pro with an 8th Gen i5, 8 gig of RAM, 256 SSD for 190 quid, which is about 230 of your US greens, which I thought was not a bad deal actually. I mean, the battery apparently needs servicing, but as I said, I'm not using it for anything mission critical or anything like that. So I thought, I thought it seemed like a good enough deal. I don't really get what the fuss is about Mac OS. It's a bit meh. It's not bad. Um, but I don't exactly understand what the fuss is about. It looks nice, I suppose. The functionality is a bit odd. Um, it's actually not that performant on that kind of hardware actually. Um, I don't think it's as bloated as Windows would be on that kind of hardware, but I mean, it wasn't anything fantastic. And so after about 24 hours, I thought, let's put a Linux install on this. So the question was which one to go for. Having dual booted Windows for years, um, I thought I thought it might be slightly trickier, but not much more. No, it's a little bit more trickier. Um, so I had to find quite a few online guides on how to do it. They had to how to do a bit of manual partitioning, update the firmware, make sure there was enough space on the partition for the Apple device to update the firmware if and when it wants to. have to be careful with the UFI, the UFI partitions. I wanted to try Arch, but I thought that was a little bit, going to be a bit ambitious, put it that way, especially
The
since I
only
haven't.
way to go is the word you're looking for.
Well, I mean, I haven't really tried Arch on normal devices yet, so I really didn't think this was the place to learn.
You'll never go back.
And so I ended up going with KDE Neon, actually. Um, I suppose as part of my other wanderings is the fact that I've been recently moving over to the Qt and KDE side of things. Um, Linux works much better on that. It was really quite performant. It was quite fast. Yeah, the battery life was terrible, but then it already was because the battery was a bit short anyway.
That's actually one of the easiest things to fix on an Apple is the battery.
I've been
Not that
told
it's easy. It's just yeah, one of the
Yeah.
easier things.
Easiest.
Yeah, I mean it's still soldered on apparently the battery. In,
That doesn't stop Joe.
Yeah, you say that, and it just makes me smile.
okay, fine.
That's Joe's forte. Just send it to Joe.
Yeah. So anyway, but there were some issues with the audio. I was having some issues with some of the audio stuff, and I then discovered that going back isn't as easy as well. Going back from a dual boot to a single boot or changing distro or whatever.
Why would you want to?
Well, I mean, yeah, I suppose why would I want to? But I mean, the point I'm just trying to say is that when
Can you hear me?
We
I,
lost.
I can
Joe.
hear you, yeah.
I can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
And there goes
Yeah, we
Moss.
can hear you, but Joe's gone.
Okay, I can still hear everybody. Oh, actually, I can't hear Bill now.
How about me?
I can
I
hear
can
you,
hear you
Moss.
now.
Well,
I
that's
can hear
good.
you, Joe.
Was it on my
I
end
can't
that
see Joe. Joe went away.
Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you, yeah.
I do not hear Bill.
Oh,
Now
Bill's
Bill's
gone.
gone.
Oh, and Joe's gone. And then there were two.
Welcome to mintCast with Moss and Majid.
Oh,
Can you
guess
see me
who's
now?
back? Yep.
Do we need to zero anything?
Audacity shouldn't have been impacted.
Okay.
That had to be
No,
something
no.
server side, unless it was just me that had the problem.
Nope, nope. You were gone.
It was the Video Ninja. I just refreshed it. For some reason, I don't know. Maybe I should. I'm
We
going
thought we had a
to.
two-man show again.
I'm going to refresh all of my network hardware here quite soon because I'm thinking that the stuff I've got, the hardware I've got upstairs, is just not up to snuff anymore.
Well, let's let Majid finish his Bible,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so yeah, I've lost my train of thought now. Give me a sec.
Well, you were talking about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
older
so,
MacBook.
Yeah. So, I just found that it was more difficult to go back if I ever wanted to, if there was any, issues and things like that. So, it's an interesting project, something I can, mess around with, but yeah, I'm not sold on Mac OS
Yeah.
or anything like that.
And you would have been extremely disappointed if you had put Linux on the M1, just because I think hardware acceleration is barely starting to be implemented.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a while before it's 100%.
yeah.
I wonder if hardware acceleration is a big deal though on that platform because you're not going to be gaming on it.
Well, a lot of people use Mac hardware in order to do like video editing and audio editing and a lot of your visual stuff. So I would assume that hardware acceleration is extremely helpful.
I am going to, that's the other thing I'm going to fix in the future. I'm going to go with an NVIDIA, because apparently OBS on Linux does not support hardware acceleration unless you've got an NVIDIA card, because it works on my Omen, but it does not work on this one, because I'm running these, I've got two separate AMD video cards on this. So in the future, I'm going to be looking at that. But
So,
you're...
yeah, still Apple. Nah, I'm still not sold. And that's just not me being, I don't like big bad companies. It's just I don't understand what's so great about it. But then,
It's just the hipster
Look,
thing, you know.
Yeah. I will say that the iPads and their laptops, they all have really really good screens. I mean,
Oh
even the
yes.
first gen iPad still has an absolutely incredible screen. The only problem is that you can't really load software onto it anymore because it's not getting updates. But the screen, if you can still get like the internet to work on it, just blows you away with how good it looks.
So what's going to be my next project? Well, I've got a Raspberry Pi 400, and this kind of little start off with mintCast is me my first kind of real life exposure to Nextcloud as for actual working type things. It all just been kind of like an academic thing for me before. I've been using things like Mega, and I've got some Google Drive and OneDrive storage, which I only use because I it's kind of like a grandfather plan, one I'd had maybe years and years ago, so I've still got like 25 gigs somewhere, or 50 gigs, something like that. That's the only reason I've kept it. Um, but yeah, I've been wondering whether to use the Raspberry Pi. You can apparently turn that into your own personal Nextcloud server, and then I'll have my own personal cloud, I suppose, and I can kind of connect to it in and out. I've got a couple of hard drives I can attach to it, so it might be something I might try out. As I was kind of mentioning, I've kind of been moving away from GNOME to KDE. Um, I always thought KDE was a bit bloaty and laggy. I know that they've done a lot to try and move away from that, but it was still probably a belief I had. Um, but I actually, tried out the latest Kubuntu, and I was actually pretty impressed with how performant it was on the hardware that I have. Um,
Yeah, even
it just
Discover
worked really
works
well.
these days.
Yeah, no, it worked really well, and KDE Connect obviously works better on a KDE distro than GS Connect, which is the kind of hacky GNOME version. I don't know if it is a specific fork or if it's just KDE Connect in a different wrapper. Um, so yeah, I have wondered about Arch Moss, yeah, Bill, um, but I'm just a bit twitchy about doing it on anything that I actually use for like real life work.
Try
Well,
something Arch based, an Arch derivative. Go with Garuda.
I have been recommending Big Linux, but they seem to have dropped their biggest feature, the Big Store.
If you want
Manjaro
a
was the one I was thinking, just
Well,
because it's the
Manjaro
most.
is a has diverged quite a bit from Arch. If you want to actually learn Arch, but you want to dip your toes into it, Endeavor OS is your way to go by far. That is a
Okay.
fine Arch-based distro, and it will give you. It's just a little bit of hand holding to kind of ease you into the experience,
It
whereas
does work
with
well, but it's really bad for multi booting.
yeah, Moss has some rather unique problems when he
Yeah.
installs sometimes because
I've
he's
done it
got
on many machines.
and he's got like more than two operating systems on some machines in it. I've never been able to duplicate some of the problems that he's had. Um,
Well, I had that one machine that I had 12 distros on, and I was going to expand it to 20, and at midpoint, I decided to just knock it back to 8.
yeah,
I'm not doing that these days. I have settled down. I am only doing 2 or maybe 3.
I mean, of
but
course, this could be a real reason for me to buy another test laptop. Obviously, do you know what I mean? Because obviously,
But I
it's,
mean, nowadays I mean, if you've got a little bit of sense, you can work your way through that new Arch install, and I love it because it speaks better FS, and it
If
creates sub volumes and everything.
if you're going to put one distro on a machine, there is no problem with Endeavor. I would also suggest, however, looking in another direction. I always talk about Open Mandriva a lot, and nobody else listens to me, but it's a beautiful distro, and
I
it's
remember back
everything
in the
that you
day there
used to
used
love
to
in
be
Mandrake.
a fork of that back in the day. Magia.
Magia, that was on the
Magia and Open Mandriva are similar, but Open Mandriva is much more rounded out these days. Magia has some of the original developers, but Open Mandriva has almost all of the original community.
I mean, that Magia was curious about 10, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
at
yeah.
the top of Distro Watch
Yeah, it
list.
was.
I
Yeah.
mean, it stayed at the top of Distro Watch, and nobody could figure out. And I thought it was just because everybody was so curious. They were hitting the website, and it was running those numbers up, you know. Uh,
Well, the
so
new hot thing is Open Mandriva Rome, which is a slow rolling distro. And it already has some of the next version of Open Mandriva's programs running on it.
I've just always liked Arch because if you're wanting the latest software, like if you're waiting on if a problem comes up in software and you're wanting it fixed fast, then Arch is going to be your way to go because you're going to get it as soon as it becomes available, basically. And I've been run. You know, you hear a lot of talk, mostly by people that don't run it, talking about how unstable it is and how you run the risk of this and run the risk of that. And I can tell you, I've been running it for 15 years, and it is very seldom you run into a problem where you have to go and do a little bit of digging to find the answer to it.
If you run Manjaro, do not run the GUI updater. Because sooner or later they change the actual repos on a regular basis, and the updater doesn't get that.
Okay. Um, Outside of computers, I suppose I've really been loving Star Trek Picard season 3. I've always been a Trekkie, and for me, the next generation is peak Star Trek. I don't know if that's heresy.
Really?
It's
I-
because your age.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
I
gotta
have
be
a
it.
bone to pick with that, though.
Nah,
Just-
let's just have this out right here. now.
Episode 9 acted like season 2 never happened.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true, but that's because season 2 was just terrible.
Whether it was terrible or not, they fixed the Borg, and now we have the old Borg back, and no description, nothing, nobody knows what happened. Just all of a sudden, the old Borg are back.
Well, have you seen Picard yet, Moss?
Yeah, I'm
You-
talking
okay.
season 3, episode
Oh.
9.
Oh,
which
you're
is the
talking about
latest
Picard. I
episode.
thought you were talking about Next Generation. Okay.
No, season 2, they fixed the Borg. Dr. Girardi actually merged with the Borg Queen.
Well, maybe that's what the it's going to be in the finale. I don't know.
See, I haven't made it through season 2 yet, so because
Well,
Okay.
they fixed the Borg a couple of times during TNG, and I mean,
Well,
come
yeah,
on.
but the Borg really had more of a happening in Voyager.
Yeah, true.
they did a lot of interesting things with the Borg in some of the books that were written.
Yeah, but those don't count.
Yeah,
Oh, they-
And I would
Yeah.
argue your next point as well. I am enjoying season 3 of Mandalorian.
No, I mean, okay,
Oh.
okay. Some
I love that.
in season 3. Okay, it's not bad at all.
It's,
Well, have you
but
seen the
it's-
latest episode?
It's not good either.
Have you seen the latest episode?
No,
Cal?
I haven't
seen
seen
the
this
latest.
last
Okay.
Wednesday's
I have
episode.
You will change your opinion based on
Okay.
this last episode. So
Good.
we will have this conversation again.
No, I
Okay.
saw the one on Wednesday, the one that's just gone past, and it was all right. It's okay. It just
See,
it
I-
wasn't as good as the first season, and the second season had a bit of a drop off, and now this third one dropped off.
Well, I
again.
think
For
it's
me,
really
personally.
weird that the armorer dropped her whole problem with Bo-Katan just because she got washed in the water again. But still.
I know it's just
Well, no, and then told her to take off the helmet.
Yeah,
and,
told her
there
to
is
take off
some
the
walk
goofy
the line between
stuff
the two,
in that
blah,
show.
Blah blah.
Putting the kid into that robot suit, that was kind of goofy and dumb, and I'm not
yeah,
sure
I mean,
what purpose that served.
At the end of the
Well,
day,
the
it's a
kid
bait
never
and
even
switch,
finished
isn't it?
his oath. He
No,
was
it's
interrupted
basically a
by the
bait and
monster
It's
for the
another
oath.
Star Wars bait
That's
and
another
switch,
thing.
yeah, where they say it's about one thing, but it's actually about something else. So it's called the Mandalorian. They should just call it the Bo-Katan show. That's what really it is.
I kind of
The
thought
Bo-
they were.
No, just for season 3 though. I mean, you didn't have that problem with season 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, that true, but the point I'm
Well,
just trying to
season
say,
two,
so
they're,
there are some people like me who haven't seen the Clone Wars, who haven't seen all the animated stuff, right? And so
Same here.
for me,
I've watched
Same here.
most
I
of them,
got
but
kids
not
that
all.
they give me the Cliff Notes version of it.
yeah, so it's kind of so there's a lot of stuff here that's just completely going over my head.
I
And
watched
like other
Rebels. That
people are
was
like saying,
fun.
"Oh, look, but you know, she was in this episode of
They
this, that, and the other," and you're
they
like,
did do a
okay.
lot of assuming about their audience with some of these shows with the canon and that because they think people
Well,
are.
it's very much
Yeah,
like
and
Star
you know,
Trek. You're
if you
Yeah.
supposed to have
hadn't
seen
watched Boba
everything.
Fett, again, you'd be a bit behind as well because there was quite a few Mandalorian episodes in the Boba Fett
Yeah.
series.
2.
Yeah,
Still,
Boba Fett actually half of the Boba Fett season was just another
No,
half
I would
season
say
of Mandalorian.
two episodes. Two episodes were Boba Fett. Boba Fett were Mandalorian episodes. The last two.
Let's
And
move on to the
And
cricket.
about that kid not finishing his oath, I bet you any amount of money that's going to play into the story later on. He's going to take his helmet off because his dad gets okay. Spoiler alert: his dad gets killed in this episode.
interesting
And
point. Do you know who his dad was voiced by?
no,
Jon
I'm
Favreau.
really.
Yeah. So
Well,
'cause
he needed to be killed off anyhow.
That's the only actually in the thing himself.
Why? Because he was big. Was it?
I
Is this
don't
a
look, man,
size jealousy thing?
I just noticed it on the credits.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Okay. Just finishing off with Wanderings. I'm really
It's gonna be a
loving the
4-hour
Indian
show.
Premier League, which is a cricket thing. I know you Americans don't do cricket, but apparently this.
Oh yeah,
form
I
of
use them for
cricket
bait.
Yeah. Anyway, this form of the game is actually coming to America. It's going to be called Major League Cricket. You know, like Major League Soccer.
Is it
Look,
coming?
Look, the Pens
We've
recently
had
got
Major
knocked
League
out.
Lacrosse for several years, and it
Look.
hasn't got. It's not Major League.
The
just 'cause you
Penguins
call
got
it.
knocked out of the running for the playoffs for hockey, so I'm done watching sports for the year.
But I mean, it is. I mean, you know, it's completely different. You know, it's a 3-hour game. There's definitely a winner and a loser. There's a lot. You know, there's a lot.
Oh,
of
with hockey,
razzmatazz.
there is always a winner and a loser.
No, but
there
this
is no
one of the things
tie
that
in
people have-
hockey.
People keep,
Yeah, that's
keep
why I
thinking that
stopped
cricket
watching
is
hockey.
just it's a 5-day game and at the end of it nobody wins and you know it's just all lazy people sitting around in the sunshine drinking beer.
Yeah,
which
it
is kind
takes
of
5
is.
days
That's
to
cricket
have a
But
score
this
that's like
kind isn't.
1,200 to 2.
And a hockey game lasts at minimum 1 hour and 40 minutes at minimum, and usually at least 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So
Anyway, if you, yeah, I think it's well, I mean, obviously I'm biased because like I'm of Indian extraction, so it's kind of in my DNA to like cricket. But I mean, you know, I have been enjoying it. It's been very close.
Do you have the
Well,
white pants and the sweater?
you're
and all that?
saying the reason I like hockey is because I'm this white?
You know
It's
what?
kinda-
India-
no, it's
That's
kind of
harsh.
Should I
the.
tell you the national sport of India?
Huh?
Hockey. National sport of India, officially in the constitution, is hockey.
That's awesome.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, both India and Pakistan.
Wow.
I'm waiting
Probably
for
Russia, too.
Australian rules football to get here.
Work-wise has been a bit busy because we've had a junior doctor strike that's been going on. I really do feel for them because, you know, they have basically had a real terms pay cut of about 30% over the last 10 years. And I think now people are voting with their feet. There's a lot of people going to Canada, going to America, going to Australia. I think you guys are going to see a lot more British trained doctors because they're just fed up of the relatively crap wage for the amount of work that they have to do. So it made my life a bit busier, but I support them, to be completely honest.
Now, is that? I'm not familiar with this particular portion of politics. Is that an actual pay cut, or is it a problem with inflation not meeting pay rises?
So a pay freeze was put on all doctors in 2008. That pay
Yikes.
freeze has stayed. That has
Yikes.
not. Yeah. So therefore.
15 years, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And-
sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you calculate it out, it comes out to a real terms decrease of 30%.
I
And,
wouldn't.
you know, we're talking about people who are working 56 hours a week, people who literally did put their lives on the line during COVID, you know, and we used to have this thing called Clap for Carers. Every Thursday at 8 o'clock, everybody would come out onto the street during the lockdowns and clap for the NHS. And it's like, you know what would be better than a bunch of random people clapping? A proper wage.
More pay.
Yeah. You
No,
know,
we hear you.
Have to get rid of the Tories to do that, though.
yeah. The problem is there's no bloody money because the Tories have torched it all. But anyway, that's beside the point. Then we'll get really political.
Somebody told
Don't
him
you
money
just
was
love
woke.
all the money that that UK is making now that they left the EU? They just hand over
Don't even
fist. We get to
don't
keep
even
all our
get
money.
Brexit. Oh,
don't even get me talking about that, mate. Don't not get me talking.
We
It
have
serves some
been
people right, frankly.
we
but-
have taken a lot of heat on this team about talking American politics, and we're
Oh,
sorry,
no, I can
but
talk British politics as long as you want.
no, no.
You know.
Talking
I-
politics. Talking politics. People get upset about that because we're a Linux show. But if we find this interesting, we're going to talk about it because
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
our show.
Yeah.
Well, then
Ain't nobody paying us to make this show. You start paying us, then you can tell us what to talk about, what not to talk about. Until
And
which
then
time.
I suppose
depends on how much they're paying us too.
That too, yeah. I said paid with a capital P.
So, and I suppose the last thing to mention is that it is the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which is a fasting where you're supposed to abstain from food and drink and sex during the daylight hours. Being
Help me out.
diabetic, being diabetic, I'm not doing it because I've been told by my doctors that it wouldn't be a good idea for me.
You have to maintain your blood sugar all day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But the rest of the family are, so it's quite nice actually getting some family time, because everybody's kind of in it together, if you know what I mean, and meal times
Hungry and
obviously
grumpy?
around those, and lots of people coming round with sweet treats and things like that, to open your fast with and stuff. So it's nice. It's nice.
Now I have to ask. You being diabetic, do you have the automated insulin pump?
No, I have my own injections which I take.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not on the insulin pump yet, thankfully. I hope I don't get that far. Although I must say, the people I do know who are on it say it has really helped their lives.
Well,
compared to
there's a couple of different styles of insulin pump. For a while in the U.S., it was really difficult to get a hold of the one that would do the constant blood readings and then adjust the amount of insulin that was given. And it actually was a really great way to reduce your overall insulin usage.
Yeah.
Just from my research, because my sister and my dad and a couple of my grandparents, all type 2 diabetic. So.
We could go ahead and discuss this in the innards.
Well, yeah, that actually is a very open source topic, and a lot of the articles that I used to read on it, I can't freaking find anymore. But yeah, if he's not doing the pump, then I guess that might be a conversation for a different day.
I feel like we talked about that once before, the insulin pumps.
It is one of my favorite topics. So.
Yeah. Well,
He's all pumped up on it.
so yeah, without further ado, let's move on to our Linux innards. Now,
And what are we doing?
Well, we've got a new host, and it's okay. I guess I'll go ahead and say it. Welcome to mintCast, Majid. Why don't you? We got some questions listed here, but
All right.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And
Well, before we get to that, I also wanted to mention that the reason our innards is just this interview portion is also because we were supposed to have, I think, 2 others at one point, and then it was down to one other person other than Majid, and that person had to cancel at the last minute because of personal reasons and stuff came up at home. So,
We can grill him next episode.
yep.
So my name's Majid, and I'm a doctor. I work in anesthesiology here in the UK. I specialize in pediatrics, so kids operations. Also do quite a bit of teaching. Involved in a couple of educational things with our Royal College. So I suppose the first question normally is this. So wait a minute, why are you into Linux? I guess that would be your first question, right?
That's
Well-
what it says on my page.
No, it doesn't say why. It says what got you into Linux is the first
Okay.
question. But we can start with why are you into Linux? I like that one too.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I mean, I think I've always thought that medicine as a career is not one thing. There's lots of different aspects, of doctors. There's surgeons, there's physicians, there's family doctors, there's anaesthetists, anesthesiologists, there's radiologists, whatever. And I find that different personality types end up in different fields. So if you ever come to my hospital, you find that there's a preponderance of cyclists, fitness freaks, and techies who are anesthesiologists. You find a lot of people who are into DIY are often surgeons, you know, etc., etc., you know. And so I think there's obviously something in my psyche that is predisposed to technology, and I always have been. I mean, I remember getting my first computer when I was 7. It was an Amstrad CPC 464 with the tape deck, and during the 90s I was a big kind of Amiga fan. I had multiple different Amigas. I would be programming. I'd always be having a go at my mates who had Sega or SNES and say, look, yeah, but yours just a console, mine's a proper computer, and that kind of stuff. So I've always been interested in technology, but obviously with the demands of a job, working in a hospital and things like that, I just didn't really have time to do anything tech related. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I suppose part of it also comes down to the fact that I hit a certain age when computers became less appealing and heavy metal and girls became more appealing. So I think there's a little bit of that probably as well.
That was the
But
90s for me.
Hey, a one
pardon?
terabyte hard drive is heavy metal.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I mean, I've heard the new Metallica albums just came out yesterday. I haven't listened to it yet, but I need to.
72 seasons.
Yeah, 72 seasons. Yeah, the singles sounded good.
I'll
Anyway,
download it on Napster.
Share.
so yeah, so for a long time I couldn't do anything, kind of tech related, because I was just too bloody busy working, or if I was at home, I had a young family, all that sort of thing, and so I didn't really have time. And it was about 2010, 2011. First, I started getting into smartphones, Android. Got a HTC Hero, got a Nexus S. Started, dabbling a little bit there, and then I had some major exams that I needed to do, which were the equivalent of board exams in the US. And once I'd done them, I had some free time, finally. And I thought, well, I need to have a bit of a life again, because my entire life had just been devoted to my job for years. And so I thought I need to try and get back and do some normal stuff. And so I came across this. I used to have this old laptop, an Intel Centrino something, 1 gig of RAM, and it ran Windows XP, and it was an absolute pie. It took about 5 minutes to load up, 10 minutes to check your email, and I came across something on the internet saying, "Oh, here's an operating system that you can burn onto a CD that you can then put into your laptop, and it would look like an Amiga." That was the and I think it was called Vision OS or something. So I tried that, and it looked pretty cool, and it was I got a bit of kind of 90s kicks out of it. And then I started digging a little bit deeper into, well, what exactly is this operating system? And then I came across, well, this is this thing called Linux. Okay. And then I thought, okay, let me look a bit more into Linux. And then, before you know it, I'd come across Ubuntu, and I was burning Ubuntu onto CDs. And then, I just found that was just an amazing thing. The idea that I could have an operating system that I could just take around with me, and my own personal computer as it was, without having a laptop. And that's kind of how it started, really. I think I remember using Ubuntu. This would have been the first year that they were using Unity. So I never used GNOME 2. So I missed all that. I came on when they'd move over to Unity. And then I came across Mint.
That would have been 12.04.
Yes. I think actually technically it was 11.10. But yeah, 12.04 was an LTS. I remember there was a big thing about, oh, this is an LTS with Unity on. And yeah, then I came across Linux Mint, and then it's just, I messed around, distro hopping, using this, using that. I used a fair load of distros, bought different laptops to check this out, check that out. And yeah, so that's kind of how it all started, really. I think there's also the thing about you see people. You don't want to be an eye sheep, as it were. You don't want to be following the crowd. You want to be your own thing. You want to be a bit of a contrarian. I think that's probably also part of it of my psyche. I'm always been the kind of guy who always want to be slightly different. Do you know what I mean? And
So do you
so,
use Linux at work or just as a hobby?
so I use Linux as an enthusiast. I use Linux for my basic computing needs and things that I want to do on a computer. With the kind of work that I'm doing, I suppose I can't really use it at work. I did have some ideas for anesthetic record keeping, drug taking, not drug taking, drug stocking and things like that. Yeah, drug taking as well, but it's not. You don't need Linux to take drugs. Uh, I'm sure
No,
there's
but
other ways
it
of
it
doing it.
helps to keep track on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep your LibreOffice
Yeah.
spreadsheet going. Um, but yeah, so I haven't used it. As I said, just because of the line of work that I'm in. But there is a society called doctors love their societies. It's a Society for Computing and Technology and Anesthesiology, which I'm a member. Actually presented at their thing. So um, maybe something I can use on that thing. But mainly, I just use it because it really works. It does what I want it to do. I can configure the way I want it to do, and yeah, it's just a better experience on the computer. And in that early period, I started, that's when I discovered podcasts as well, and in the Google Reader days when it still used to be around, and that's when I first came across mintCast. Actually, I remember it must have been about 2012 because I was listening to Rob and Scott while I was on a holiday once, you know. So it's a little bit odd for me to be actually on the program. I listened to like about 10 years ago, but it's kind of cool, isn't it?
Don't forget to
We're
mute,
glad you're here.
Moss.
Don't forget to what?
Mute.
I am muting. However, you don't hear me muting, but my Audacity is muted.
Okay, okay.
Because screw all those people watching on YouTube.
Right?
They get all the good stuff.
They get the hot outtakes.
Right. You are part of the process.
Okay, so you started using Linux because they had a distro that was similar to the Amiga?
Yeah, it's a bit sad,
Okay.
I know, but I mean,
It's not sad.
Oh no,
everybody has
gets
their
you
own
there.
ways in, I suppose.
we all love Amiga.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
my-
and when it comes to your Pi 400, the guy to talk to is Bill. Talk to Bill.
Right, here's one. It's
Well,
running
they do have
Mint.
Amiga OS for the Pi 400 too.
And he also has Nextcloud set up, and I know you were talking about setting that up.
Yeah,
Mintcast.org is running on a Pi 400.
excellent.
This one right here.
Okay, so what are your distros?
So, all roads seem to have led to Ubuntu so far. Every time I've tried to move away from an Ubuntu flavor or Ubuntu based distro, like say Mint, as an example, I always end up back there because every time I seem to balk a computer or mess up an install or whatever, I always manage to be able to fix it with a live USB of Ubuntu basically, and so as I said, I've done a lot of distro hopping. I did settle on just plain vanilla Ubuntu about maybe 2 years ago, and I thought, look, I'm just gonna keep this and keep going with this. But
So GNOME 3?
yeah, I actually, as I said, for me, as I never used GNOME 2, it's never been a like, this is what I've known, if you know what I mean. For me, Ubuntu was Unity, and then it was GNOME 3. So I know that a lot of people had issues, and that's how Mate kind of came about, and in fact, you can say that's how Cinnamon came about because people wanted to have a more traditional desktop paradigm. That's fine, but I never really kind of had that to go back to, if you know what I mean. And so the thing I like about GNOME, or the thing I liked about GNOME, I still like about GNOME. What am I saying? Is that I actually think it's a really good desktop environment if you've got either a convertible or a two-in-one or a tablet with a keyboard.
I've said that about GNOME 3.
Yeah. I mean, I remember so as one of the first kind of podcasts I used to do was on a British mobile phone one called Cool Smartphone. I think it's shut down now. But at the time, this would have been about 2015-ish, 2016. And I remember one of the articles that I actually wrote for the website was why I thought GNOME 3 was the convertible OS that everybody's looking for. You know, that Windows are trying, Windows tried, having this, Windows 8 Metro style, modern UI, all that sort of jazz. And convertible form factors, this, that, and the other. And actually, yeah, I thought GNOME worked the best on any of those, and that's still and that was back in 2015, 2016. It's even more now.
Well,
Norbert
if
would
you
agree with
remember,
you.
those things came out about the same time, the GNOME 3 and then the whole Metro thing with Windows 8 and that, and it kind of felt as though that was the direction we were just kind of going to have to get used to.
And
So,
But Norton,
the thing I found about touchscreen on a laptop, what I found about that is once you get one, it's you kind of get used to having one. And I don't know if that is because so many other things we've got are touch devices, like phones and tablets and
I don't
whatever.
like
I don't
macaroni and
know.
cheese on my screen.
you could be eating broccoli right now.
Yes. But I
Yeah,
do find
you.
myself, my hand goes to switch things off, and or whatever on my screen, or KD's got some interesting touchscreen gestures actually, which are a bit like those old Metro ones now.
Well, this kind of two things. One, Norbert would agree with you about GNOME 3 and touchscreen. And then my next question would be, did you have you tried out Fedora, which also has GNOME 3 stock?
Yes. So the in my hands, because I'm not as technical as you guys, whenever I put on Fedora, I'd always end up messing up my dual boots or whatever. Every time I've tried it, I've
Well,
got
that's
it. I've
because you're
actually
trying to dual boot.
probably, um, yeah.
That's just crazy,
So
yo.
I suppose
Isn't it, Moss?
I'm rolling over here.
so
I'm so
actually,
techy.
interestingly, I have actually burned a USB of Fedora, which I want to try on one of the touchscreen devices I've got, but I haven't had the guts to do it yet. Because it has to be something that I'm not bothered if it dies.
One of the hilarious things you're going to notice being on this show is the fact that Moss does not consider himself very technical. And I remember being really set back by that.
I do really good with multi-booting, but if there's a problem that come up, the best thing to do is reinstall
Look, a
or
problem
install
comes up with
something
the
else.
computer. The best thing to do is nuke and pave.
Yeah.
Well, but Dale Miracle doesn't see things that way. He actually gets in and finds out what's wrong and
I
fixes it.
don't. I don't have all day. Look, I like doing this stuff, and I still don't have all day to go in there and diagnose something that's wrong. Which is why all my data is on a separate hard drive. So that way, my hard drive that has the operating system, all I got to do is wipe it out and then put something new on it and point it to all the right places,
I
and I'm
still
up and
need to
running in no
train
time.
myself to use RescueZilla because you can literally make an ISO of what you've got working right now, and then when you need a nuke and pave, you can start there instead of start from scratch.
Yeah, I've also done DDs for that.
Now, see,
I
that's
mean,
techie. DD
the
is out of my.
the nuke and pave. I did that on a couple of machines, and the problem I found with that was not so much that there was a problem with the machine, but if later on I wanted my wife wants me to have at least some vague handle on our family's finances. Yeah, and so if I want to buy something new, it's like, okay, you got to sell something, got to make at least some effort to try and balance the books. And so I found that it's more difficult to sell a laptop on if you've already got rid of the Windows partition.
You can put that
Actually,
back on
no.
though.
No, see, the whole thing is that with modern laptops, this is where I'm going to disagree with you on modern laptops.
Okay.
If you install Windows on, have Windows installed on them, it's actually stored in the BIOS. The key is stored in the BIOS, and you can go out to Windows website, download their image for free, put it on a USB stick for free. install it, and the key code, all that jazz, it's already there. It's already ready to go. Windows is reinstalled, and it's brand new. And hey, look, Windows, have fun.
And the next person that starts it up will get like an OEM experience starting it up the first time. You can actually get 11, 10, and 8.1. Maybe not 8.1.
I don't know if you can download 8 anymore. I know you can get 10.
Yeah, I
Eight's
know you
out
can
of
get 10
support,
and
from what
11.
I know. 8
Okay,
ain't
so
from what
yeah,
I support.
it's 10 and 11 you can get, and that's how I get the ISO when I'm making a virtual machine. Is I get it directly from Microsoft, which it's a good idea to do that anyway. That way you can have it when you buy a computer at the store. It comes with all that garbage cruft, you know. I've been known to take a computer like that and wipe it and reinstall Windows on it.
I go on
Like,
eBay and search for no OS, and it's
Yeah.
usually
or
$100
no
or
hard
more
drive,
cheaper.
yeah.
Yeah, no hard. Well, the problem with no hard drive is some machines actually have to have their own particular caddy for that hard drive.
Well, I have a 3D printer and a caliper.
I don't.
Have you got duct tape?
Or two-sided tape will do it too.
Yeah. There's ways of getting that thing to just stay
But
put.
two-sided tape, you best be ready to heat that thing up if you ever want to remove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, so maybe,
Back to
maybe
machine.
I don't need to be as careful then.
Nah.
This will be me destroying all my machines now.
No, like my Latitude, that the tablet that I
Yeah.
say is the greatest thing ever. I quit using it when I got my 1GX. My wife needed something to work on. I put Windows back on it. I'm not buying a key. I just handed it to her, and the old key worked.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about it.
I'm not sure if it's in the BIOS or if it's hashed server side somewhere when you sign into your account.
Maybe. I know I don't
don't
have
know.
any problem on my gaming laptop either, and it's a
Yeah.
little bit older, so.
Ever since 8, actually, whenever I would go to reinstall it, I have not typed in a key since the Windows 7 days. So it's
Well, anyhow, back
So yeah,
to
that's the
Majid.
only thing that's why I normally dual boot, just so that if I sell the machine on.
So your favorite distro then is Ubuntu. Do you use the flavors?
Yeah. So as it says, what I'm using now at the minute is Kubuntu. That's what I'm using at the moment because, as I said, I want to try. I'm quite liking KD actually.
Do you use things like Lubuntu on like lower spec hardware or
Yeah,
anything
so
like that?
I have done in the past. I've used Lubuntu. I've used. Remember when Mint used to have a XFCE version? I've used
Yep.
that.
They still do.
Did they still have it? I
Yeah,
thought it
they
was just
still
cinnamon
have
and maintenance.
XFCE. No, they used to have a KDE version. They don't
Yeah, I
have
remember
that
that.
anymore.
Yeah, okay.
On the lower spec machines, you might want to look at Linux Lite or Zorin Lite. They're
Yeah,
both
I
Ubuntu based
think I've
and
tried-
they're real
yeah.
simple.
Well, as an
Yeah, I think I
Ubuntu
tried
guy, I
Linux
was just
Lite once.
asking. Yeah, I was asking if he was using the lighter Ubuntu flavors.
Yeah, I mean, it seems apparently now Unity is classed as a lighter flavor.
Is
I
it?
mean,
Not really.
they've
I don't know.
I have been talking to Rudra quite a bit about that, and no, it's sort of midweight.
it?
If you get a Unity distro installed, it's going to be 800, 850 megabytes with nothing else running.
as far as responsiveness that goes, though, I've noticed lately, in the last couple years or so, they've all been pretty good. As long as you've got at least 4 gig of RAM, you're gonna have
Yeah.
a good experience on
Yeah, I mean,
all
I
of
think
these
that's
desktops.
also
No.
the thing, isn't it? I mean, like, so this machine that I am talking to you guys on, this one's probably my more powerful machine. It's got 16 gigs of RAM and it's got 11th gen i5 with a 512 SSD.
Yeah, that's top end
And-
right there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is absolutely, this flies through everything. I remember the other day I was installing something and I couldn't believe how quickly it happened, and I thought, yes, because for once, Majid, you actually have a decent spec computer rather than buying cheaper ones on eBay. Yeah,
And it really helps when you're doing editing of any kind of content whatsoever. All that extra speed helps.
Yeah.
Now, you
So
mentioned you worked with podcasts before. Have you been on a podcast
yeah. So
before?
so as I said, I used to be on the Cool Smartphone podcast. Um, in the UK, which was a more, as it sounds like, a smartphone one. Then I was on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. They're actually a YouTube channel. Um, they've stopped. They've kind of stopped doing the podcast because they're mainly focused on the video content now. In fact, you've probably seen. I don't know if you've into Android, you watch Android podcasts sort of thing. You probably know the guy Matteo Doni. He comes on a couple of the, like, all about Android and things like that.
You know, I used to watch all about Android, but it's
Yeah,
been a while.
yeah, and so I was on that, and then I met a friend who is she's a dentist and she has a podcast, and I thought dentistry podcast bit odd, but it seemed to work
Seems like
for her.
be good to sink your teeth into.
Ah,
Available for weddings, birthdays, and bar
ah.
mitzvahs. Um, and so I then thought, why not have my own? If a dentist can have one, why can't an anesthesiologist have one? You know. So and this also kind of coincided with the lockdowns, during COVID. So I was kind of sat at home and didn't have much else to do anyway. And so I started my own podcast called Atypical Anesthetist on Spotify, and my plan was to have really extremely varied topics. Um, in fact, we've not actually talked about medicine once yet. Actually, we've had one on gaming. We've had a couple of religious ones. We had one on politics. I have a friend who's involved in the Labour Party, and he seemed to be higher up than I anticipated. It's like he dropped. When people like drop a reference, and you're like going, "Excuse me, what?" Yeah, it's like I was having a discussion with him, saying, "Oh, what do you think of the new Labour leader?" And he goes, "I had lunch with him once. I didn't think he was all that." Excuse me, what? You had lunch with
It's
him?
like you're angry because if you knew he was that useful, you'd have been tapping into that long time ago.
Exactly, and it's like, dude, or like the other day when he came up from London and
Oops,
he kind
lost
of
Joe.
went, "Oh, I've been invited to this Eid thing at Downing Street. I can't really attend. Do you want to go?" What? Where did that come from, Rashad? Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh well. Anyway,
Uh,
I've done all these now. Unsurprisingly, if you've got extremely varied and random topics on your podcast, you're hardly going to be the most likely, the most popular. So it's not really kind of gone anywhere. But I enjoy it. I feel it's interesting,
And that's what's
um,
important.
and
If you're the one putting it
I
out,
think it's a different. Actually, my most well received episode has actually been one where it's been a single hander. It's just been me talking about the the thing I love about America is that in America you can have multiple identities and be American. You can be Italian American, you can be Irish American, you can be African American, whatever. It's not
you can be a butthole American.
yeah, you can be Florida man.
Redneck American.
It's part of the experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different kind of background, stuff like that. It's not really the same thing in the UK, you know. Being English is it's like a racial or an ethnic group. Do you know what I mean? You can't be Indian and English, if you know what I mean. And so I remember doing this whole episode about having kind of one foot in one country and one foot in another country. Being a bit, you know, being too English to be an Indian and being too Indian to be an Englishman. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that was actually quite well received. Actually, I had quite a few people saying that was very. So obviously there are some people who do like listening to me talking about random stuff. I was actually trying to get some Linux guys on to the podcast. I'd love to get like Joe Ressington or the guys from Late Night Linux on.
Triggered.
look,
Triggered Moss.
Joe is a great guy. I like talking to Joe. Well, we'll get to Moss's beef with Joe in just a
No,
second.
we won't.
Okay, that's fine then. But he's also not the easiest person to work with when it comes to podcasts because he's very, very exacting about his audio quality, and I can understand his perspective because he actually makes money doing this.
I do enjoy his
And I
show though,
understand it
because
too, but he doesn't understand my perspective.
I've noticed the American Linux podcasts. For some reason, we're supposed to be the bubbly, positive type. We're not, no, but we're
Yeah, I mean,
most
I
of the
must
more
say,
more prolific ones. I'm not going to name names.
no, I mean,
Life.
there's a,
Don't talk to me about life.
JB, oh,
well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say there's ones that are named after a planet, a broadcasting company,
Yeah,
which I couldn't get on with because they were
I thought
just
they were named after a
too.
rocket.
I met those guys.
Did
I'm
you?
sure they're lovely guys. I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But the program was just too. It's the same thing with the Android.
I got to be in the
podcast
right
from
mood to
America
listen
as
to
well,
that.
but maybe it's just being a Brit and being a bit acerbic and sarcastic and grumpy.
Yeah.
And, we live in a place which rains all the time and nothing ever works and
The food
We don't
sucks.
know anything about sarcasm or being grumpy on this show.
I mean, yeah, we've made sarcasm a fine art. Actually. It really annoys
It's almost
my
a
wife,
competition. I've noticed.
I don't know. My sarcasm art is more like kindergarten level. But
Look, and here I'm going to mention that we are quite willing to debate religion with you, but I don't know if you'll like us come the end of it.
Yeah, it's fine, man. I've always thought that if I can't defend what I believe, then what the hell do I believe? So it's like, for example, people are surprised when they speak to me to find out how much I know about other religions. Like I can tell you about, all the different branches of Christianity and the evangelicals and the Calvinists
Can
and
you?
the Arminians and the soteriologists. The
Yeah, don't ever do
Puritans and the
No.
Baptists,
Hold
the
up.
Baptists,
Hold
the
up.
Southern Baptists.
Ho-
I can
no,
go through it all.
because I'm just going to say a couple of ones here. Apostolic Christian.
Yeah, so that's if I remember correctly, that is a Presbyterian branch.
Sort of, it's apostolics is a little bit odd when it comes to what it actually is.
they're all a little bit odd.
A little.
Basically, yeah. They're not as bad about technology as some of your branches of Christianity, but they believe that you should only use technology if you need it in order to be able to interact with, modern day. So while they might have a TV, they're only going to use it for like weather.
Okay.
While they might have a car, they're only going to use that car to get
Just-
back and forth to
Just
work.
shoot me now.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, come on.
moving
I
on
am
from
going
that,
to stay out
here's
of it.
another
do you
one
see what
for
I mean?
you.
But do you
Let's
see what I
move
mean
on
by
from
I
that.
know
Let's
more
move
than-
on
One,
from that.
one more. How about universalists? Do you know what universalists are?
Yeah, so they are, if I remember correctly, they're Congregationalists.
No.
Aren't they Congregationalists?
No. Universalists are actually interesting in that there's multiple types of different universalists, including Christian universalists, which are called utilitarian universalists, if I remember
Okay.
correctly.
Okay.
And then there's also another branch of universalists that say that basically nobody's right, hence everybody is. But it's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
but-
it sure is. Like when I'm
Yeah.
not here.
What about your family, Majid?
So I am. I'm married. Got 3 kids. Got an elderly mother. I sometimes wonder if my life is a bit of a. My family life is like a bad Bollywood film. Do you know what I mean? The guy that sold
With dancing
Erna-
or without it?
Unfortunately, without dancing and without the good-looking girls, unfortunately.
Believe it or not,
Yikes.
I'm right there with you.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like I've got the elderly mother who's soldiering on herself. I've got the middle-aged sister refusing to get married. I've got the wife from another continent. I've got the 3. It's just like a bad Bollywood film with not enough music and dancing and not enough totty. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean?
Right,
There should
yeah.
be some good. At least there should at least be some good-looking girls around, but there's not even that.
You should watch The Guild.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to complain. I'm very lucky.
You said you have
Choke
3
it out,
kids.
man.
What you got?
No, I am lucky because I see some of the there is because obviously I do, as I said, I do a lot of pediatric work, and I see some of the kids and some of the broken homes that they come from, and I think to myself, you know what, I can complain as much as I fucking well want to. Pardon my language. I can complain as much as I want to, yeah, but some, you know,
We'll be marking this one
Well,
explicit.
Off the show.
no, let me. You would be a very, very rich person if you were to move to the U.S. as a pediatric anesthesiologist.
Yeah, you would do
Basically,
just fine.
anyone that works in pediatrics
Sitting at the
does
end of the table
pretty
watching
darn
YouTube
well.
videos and monitoring the.
My daughter has a schwannoma that's on basically the sheath of her eye, so it's
Yeah.
right next to her brain. Can't be worked on or anything like that. But she has been in and out of pediatric hospitals for various treatments and things like that. And those guys make bank here.
yes, I have heard that. The only problem is that they don't recognize UK training. And so I'd have to start all the way from the beginning again. And like I'm too old to start that again, man. I'm not doing nights again. I'm not doing all those weekends again.
Well, you did say that things were changing up a little bit, and you might only have to do a portion of that, like some type of recertification. I don't think you'd have to redo the entire education.
I mean, I know if you go to Canada, that is basically the way that people get to Canada. They get there, and you know, they'll be on some kind of license for the first 2 years, and then they will be exactly same as they were in the
No.
UK. But that's Canada.
That might be true for medical professionals in Canada, but it's definitely not for the likes of engineering professionals.
Because, well, everything's different everywhere, isn't it? And
Yeah.
especially also because
Well, my
countries
wife
like
is
Canada
Canadian,
and America
and I
have different
sort of
states which have different
feel
rules
I'm
as well.
half Canadian myself, but yeah,
Which half?
The left half.
Definitely the left half. Yeah.
So yeah, and my son, my eldest, he also wants to be a doctor. Um, and I mean, even though actually I was actually trying to convince him not to, because I was kind
So
of
I have to ask: is your mother upset that you're an anesthesiologist and not a neurosurgeon?
no. She's more than happy that I'm an. She's actually. My mother's
Then that's not a
actually proud of
Bollywood
me.
film. It's not a
Yeah.
Bollywood film if she's not upset that you're not a neurologist instead of an anesthesiologist.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Why couldn't you go into these other things like your brother overseas? He does everything right.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
horrible.
Was
Yeah,
it?
that was
It
that
was.
was a
You-
terrible Indian accent.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah, I mean, the funny one is my son because my son was thinking about going to medicine. And I was saying, look, man, look into something else. It is quite a hard life. You know, I spent 10 years. You know, more than 10 years, 15 years probably. 12 in total. Actually, yeah, 12. You know, doing the nights, doing the weekends, doing the exams at the same time as, you know, having a young family and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, do you really want to do that? And then my mother just basically went, look, son, your dad is a doctor. Your granddad was a doctor. We are a doctor family. So you should be doctor. And this dumbass went, okay. So he's trying to get into medicine now. He's 18.
Despite the strike that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Well, good luck for him on that.
I suppose it's good to have. I suppose it's good to have drive, and you know, an idea of what you want to be. I mean, you know, sometimes.
Majid, we could talk to you all day. We're getting up close to 3 hours.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
I'm loving
man.
I am loving this conversation.
Yeah,
and-
this-
and-
Finally,
Too,
somebody
but I'd
interesting
rather
on the
it
show.
over.
well, yeah. Well, we've talked to each other so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
See,
so
this is what I
yeah.
mean by that. I'm atypical. You see, that you know, I'm not what most people think. People
Well-
will kind of see me on the street and.
If
have
you
an
don't
idea about
remain
who
on
I
the
am.
show, we will be very angry.
I can relate to that. I'm a truck driver that gets into Linux, so it's a lonely life being interesting.
I'm so stereotypical it kind of hurts. Okay.
Yeah, I can see the pain in your face.
Yeah. Well, there is pain in his face, but probably not over that.
Oh. All right, I
bullets.
suppose we ought to move on. We don't want to, but let's do it.
Get this show on the road.
Vibrations from the ether. There is none. There you go. Write the show, folks. Mintcast at mintcast.org. Comment on the website. Hit us up on the socials. You know, we're everywhere. We'd love to hear from you. Give us ideas of topics you want to hear about. we will talk about anything that you want us to talk about, literally.
including
As has
cricket,
been shown
sadly.
just now.
Moving on to check this out. Check your Wi-Fi signal strength from the command line with WaveMon.
I thought you said check your
WaveMon. I
wife then.
WaveMon. Do you WaveMon? God say it,
Wave
okay,
on,
man.
wave on.
Aye.
That was
Bill,
another terrible
just stop
accent,
with
and
the
you should be
accents,
ashamed.
please. Bill, just stop with the accents. Seriously, just stop.
I'm usually good at
Look,
this, but
look. You can do a country accent, okay? You can do a redneck accent. You can do a hillbilly accent.
I'm not taking this abuse. Let's move on. from OMG Linux via Londoner. Oh, it might be worth reading then. WaveMon is a wireless device monitoring application that allows you to watch signal and noise levels, packet statistics, device configurations, and network parameters of your wireless network hardware. It should work through though with varying features with all devices supported by the Linux kernel. So no Broadcom. This free open source tool has a neat incursive-based UI that shows a real-time graph of signal strength for the wireless network you're currently connected to. While this tool won't make your Wi-Fi faster or coax signal into network dark spots, it will allow you to see a whole host of information at a glance, including link quality, signal to noise, packet statistics, Wi-Fi config, and network info. And there's a
Screenshot.
kind of a screenshot of it. You know, it looks kind of akin to HTOP or something like that.
I will mention that I usually use like Wi-Fi analyzer
Yeah.
for this, and then it's just to see what bands are being used up.
There's
and
another
then-
line of text below this.
Yeah, it's captioned below. Version 0.9.1 is available in the Mint Ubuntu repos. A later version, 0.9.4, is available from the developer on GitHub.
I assume you have to have a Wi-Fi adapter for this to work too.
Probably would help. It's kind of hard to measure your Wi-Fi without Wi-Fi.
Well, like my desktop here is hooked up with Ethernet, so
Mine too. But I do have a Wi-Fi card in this thing. About as useful as a screen door on a submarine.
see that's a proper accent for you. Almost a NASCAR accent.
I can't buy respect anymore. I'll tell you what. Housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something you'd like to hear about, tell us. Send us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Telegram and Discord, or post directly at mintcast.org. Next episode will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, April 30th, 2023. And there's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next roundtable live stream will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, April 22nd, 2023. And there's a link to get that converted to your time zone. Next roundtable live stream will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, May 6th, 2023. And there's a link to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. To wrap up, Joe, where can we find you at?
Well, I'm on a couple other shows. You can catch me on TLLTS, that's the Linux Link Tech Show, tllts.org, or the Linux Lugcast, linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Link in the show notes. Moss?
Well, you can hear me every week on Full Circle Weekly News, every 4 to 5 weeks on Distro Hopper's Digest. My email's bardmoss@pm.me. I'm on Mastodon at zyvala@hosttux.social, and I've got other contact information available at itsmoss.com. Bill?
You can email me, bill@mintcast.org. I'm Bill_H on Discord. At WCHauser3 at Fostodon on Mastodon. And then I'm also at WC Hauser3 on Twitter and Facebook. And then also check out my other podcasts, Linux OTC and Three Fat Truckers. Majid?
So you can email me on drmajid at mintcast.org. I'm at Atypical Doctor on Twitter. I'm Atypical Anesthetist on Instagram, and the Atypical Anesthetist podcast on Spotify. Links in the show notes.
And Chris couldn't be with us. He was supposed to be our other new guy. Hopefully we'll get a chance to pass him around like a peace pipe next week. Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Someone for doing the audio editing.
It's Bill right now.
I have a feeling it's going to be me.
Thanks, Bill.
Gee, thanks.
And Co.
And Archive.org for hosting our audio files, Hobstar for our logo, and ItRD for the animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs, among a whole lot of other things. Me for hosting the server in which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio. Last but not least, the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about each fortnight. Thanks, Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
And Co. Ah! Jinx.
Okay. Now, we have to tell Majid how to export this.
I don't think it's going to be
Oh.
worth doing, to be honest with you.
With all the broken stuff he had.
I'm just going to pull the YouTube.
Yeah, well, we got to get him set up anyway to be able to export
Yeah.
Slack
Gotta
next
do it if
time.
nothing else.
Good training.
Okay, so tell me what to
Hit,
do.
hit stop.
Still recording.